Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Jeff Gersman. This is Giant Bomb's GDC podcast, day 2 of 2. Let's get that right out of the way here. This will be our final GDC podcast. We've got a new cavalcade of superstars here. And why don't we start all the way down the end? Why don't you introduce yourself, say your name, and what you do.
My name is Jeremiah Salaska. I'm the CEO and creative director of Ficel.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I've been wondering how to pronounce that. My name is Ben Gilbert, and I am a writer for joystick.com.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I am.
I'm Brad, and I work here.
Get the fuck out.
I'm John Bellamy, or Cowboy, as many people know me. I'm a programmer at Naughty Dog.
Adam Boyes, president of Beefy Media.
Oh, president.
Yes.
How fancy.
And CEO. And founder.
Do you list your name in the credits like 9 times?
No, I put myself first, ahead of anyone else, like somebody made You Don't Know Jack. That's what I would do.
Great. Next.
Hey, my name is John, and I work for Disney.
That's funny, man.
Why is that funny? Hi guys, I'm John.
I'm a Capricorn.
Next.
I'm also John, and I work for Harmonix. Yeah.
Okay. I'm Jeff. I work here.
Yeah. Sweet.
In this basement.
Yeah, I work here in this.
Out, by the way.
I know. Yeah, you missed it. I set it up. Tee these things up. So we're back. Another day of GDC. Another set of guests here. The thing that we keep asking people around the field is, what are people really getting out of GDC this year? Jeremiah, you've been showing off a game most of the time, right?
Yeah, that's right. Hybrid, our new title, which is a shooter. And people are really kind of weirded out that it's a shooter because we're known for Scribblenauts.
Is it? Do you hit Y and then have to enter words like headshot and then
Sambo,
zombie headshot?
Wow. We're not going there. A lot of people don't know there's more guns in Scribblenauts than there is in Hybrid, right? It's true. It's really true.
Factual statement.
So have you been basically like up in a suite, kind of demoing the game the whole time?
This is actually the first GDC where I haven't seen a panel. I've been literally in a room, locked and chained to a desk.
It's been kind of the same for us. I haven't gotten to see any panels at all either.
Yeah, it sucks.
But
it's good. Same thing is good. So
yeah.
It's for Hybrid, so it's for
cool.
my games. That's cool.
And Hybrid sounds like it's really cool.
Yeah. Hybrid, it's a different kind of shooter. It's a third-person shooter. Mm-hmm. But instead of actually controlling where you move, you have this thing called combat-focused movement. That's our buzzword for tonight. Remember that?
Combat-focused movement?
Sponsored by the letter A? No, I don't know. And the whole point is that when we kind of worked on it, we were kind of looking at how real soldiers work, right? And we're saying, real soldiers really don't do the whole circle strafe with a shotgun, the way that we do in multiplayer. And so we're like, well, how can we kind of mimic that and, do that in our game in a multiplayer mode? So we basically said, well, screw just moving with the left stick. Let's just select cover and press A and just go there, right? And so that's kind of how it is. It's kind of point and click thing almost. And you just basically just flick the stick, press A, and you go there. And so while you're going there, you can actually look in any direction and still shoot and stuff. That's why it's called combat-focused movement, because you're focused on the combat.
Okay.
And so a lot of people, this is the first time we've shown it off, and a lot of people are really digging it. So they're like, at first before they're like, really, you got Ficel in my generic shooter. I don't get this. You know what I mean? and after they're like, oh, okay, this is innovative and different. It's very different because a lot of people are like, oh, I've seen a million shooters. Like,
yeah, exactly. When you would come out and said ahead of time, like, we're working on this game Hybrid and it's a shooter. Yeah. I think a lot of people were like, wait, what? Do I draw the guns in myself, or
there's no one making shooters?
Do I have to scan in pictures of myself? Going like how does it? Where does it fit?
And we're saying it's innovative. And a lot of people are like, Connect? I don't know. And it's like, no. We can be innovative. You can, it's like why not challenge? The tropes that are in video games. Why not say, well, why do you have to use left stick to move? Like, why? Who says you have to? Just because you've never tried it before doesn't mean it's not awesome, right?
I played the game and I can vouch for everything that he's saying, but there was definitely a record scratch moment when he was demoing it of like, wait a minute, you don't move your guy. But you sit down and play it, and it's very intuitive. Like, you guys have given a nice snappiness to the control design.
Cool. Yeah. How about you, Ben? You've been on the panel beat, looking at stuff all day, or you've been in suites seeing actual games?
Yes, to both of those things.
Kind of all of the above.
All of those things are happening.
So what's been the standout stuff for you the past few days?
Well, everything was pretty good. I liked Hybrid a lot. I saw that, and I think the biggest standout was probably where John and I just came from right before this was Swery's Deadly Premonition panel, which was just batshit crazy, like you would expect. Totally. I think John's got a pretty great story for you coming up about the panel.
Cool.
I think Patrick over there, who just walked in, was at the panel as well.
We actually, I didn't get the email in time, but we got an email from Tad, who's been translating for Swear on the trip. He wanted to borrow the deer head with he wanted to borrow Lucha Deer, our Luchador masked deer, to have at the panel. And
Lucha Deer does not leave the premises.
Yeah, Lucha Deer, he gets violent when you get him out there. It gets bad fast.
It would have fit in perfectly with that panel, though. It's like right in line with a video game postmortem.
He did end up taking some pictures with it and posting those on Twitter and stuff, which was pretty cool. Brad, I was with you most of the day. What part of hanging out with me was the coolest?
The part where we ate the sandwiches was pretty good.
Yeah, we went to witchcraft.
and then sat in those chairs for another hour and a half. That was probably the best. I can't remember again, just like last night, what we could talk about because everything's got some kind of embargo on it.
Well, we can talk about all that same stuff from Batman that we've already seen. So it's kind of
Batman
that we already talked about on the podcast last week. Batman continues to look good, and there's like 10 seconds at the end of it that they showed that was different, and that's the part we can't talk about until next week sometime. But we shot an interview for that, and that'll be up. Played some Mortal Kombat. I continue to enjoy playing Mortal Kombat. I know you're fucking shocked.
Jaws drop across this.
Yeah. What else? That's kind of it.
That was a full day.
Pretty much it.
Yeah, so you can see why we're exhausted.
It's been rough.
It's been rough. That sandwich. The sandwiches took a long time to get here, you guys. It was really
spoiled.
There was bacon on it, and there was something else on it, and I said no onion relish, but then
And then they added LSD instead.
Yeah. So as you can see, it's been exhausting.
3 giant bomb stars.
Yes. Cowboy, how's your day been? Yeah, you gave your talk today, right?
Yeah, I flew up to Just Talk Shop, gave a programming talk on our animation system for Uncharted 1 and Uncharted 2. So that was really cool. Just got to, because we're really open about like the technology we do. We're not really secretive about any particular approach we have. And so we were afforded these nice opportunities just to come up and just like, no, just totally how we do it. Like, what do you think? Like, what do you feedback? So the best part of my day is right after the talk. Everyone comes up, they have questions like, well, what about this? And how do you do this? And like, well, we do this. And then just being able to meet, talk to those other developers is great.
Do you find it was it a lot of developers from like other established companies or like students looking to get in
It was like
on
a
those
50-50
tracks?
split, like an even mix of like, I got to talk to a guy who worked at Havoc, and then I talked to like a student who just wanted to break in. And they, both had questions and both wanted to know more detail about what was going on.
So how many resumes did you get at the end of it?
Exactly, right?
Well, to be fair, I solicited resumes at the end of my slide because we are hiring. Okay, I blew my part now. So I got like all cards from everybody. It's like, feel free. Like I said, if people want to know, well, do you have like a job for this kind of position, or like I do this kind of program? Do you have anything? And really, what Naughty Dog cares about is just step up to the plate. If you feel you're ready for it, if we like you, we will find a job for you. And so that makes working at the company really cool because we really like all our programmers. And if we like you, we'll make room.
I'm really good at smiling into a camera and eating sandwiches. Is that? And I'm ready to step up to the plate.
We will make that work.
All right.
We got a sandwich room.
We'll talk later.
There's an NPC character with your name on it for the
Right.
next game.
Sandwich man.
Smiling and eating sandwiches.
I imagine when you're revealing details about the process of a game like Uncharted or Uncharted 2, people probably come out of the woodwork and okay, wait a minute, that game was a huge seller, was reviewed really well and was awesome.
Yes.
So I'm going to find out everything I possibly. I think last year we even went to some of the postmortem talks for some of that stuff and had that kind of glazed over this is way too technical for my podcast.
Did you have any lines of code in any of your slides? Or?
I had Lisp code in my slides, and I think that might have scared some people off. But
you gotta get the guys that shouldn't be there out early on, right? You put those up front in the stack.
But the other interesting thing is when we start talking about our technical processes and our technical implementations, people find that they're not actually that complicated. They're not. We're not doing anything that special or that really crazy or off the beat. What really I think sets us apart when we go to make a game like Uncharted 2 is just the fact that we're willing to take a technical risk, and if we think a system will be cool, we'll go ahead and implement it. So we just do more. We do more implementations.
Dude, I don't even know what Lisp code is, so I don't. Does anybody else here? Do you guys?
It's a programming language.
You're the developer.
Lisp is a language, right?
I know it's a language, but I don't know anything else.
Ice-T codes exclusively in Lisp.
It's a programming language from the 1950s.
Yeah,
That's incredible.
It's a very old.
it compiles real nicely and keeps it hood. So
78,000 people like this.
It's all about the parentheses. More parentheses to get it done.
That's what I thought everyone was saying. What's it called?
Lisp.
Oh, it was.
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah.
What?
Man, fuck you guys.
I know. Exactly. Thank you for saying it for me, Joe.
Adam, what have you been doing for the past 2 days other than drinking in the lobby of a hotel?
That's kind of what we do now. No, it's been different for me because this is the first time in the last 3 years. Apparently, I did find out that when you don't work at a publisher, it's very difficult to get a talk approved. So the talk that we submitted, the talk that we did submit, the subject was Johnny V's Story Hour.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah, it's like you had me on that panel. Like, how do you think that's going to get
Chris,
approved?
Charlotte, Mike,
the game developers want to know what I think.
They want to know all the crazy stories, the backstories, and that got denied. I don't know.
Was he on the
They
panel?
felt that there would be no takeaways. No, he was just. We're just gonna have a big
Just a
slide.
passive-
Yeah,
a slide of him sweating or shirtless on the back.
Thank you.
No problem. No, it's been good. A lot of meetings this time. So at DICE, 3 weeks back, we met mostly with publishers. We've got a couple games in development right now that we'd love to talk about. Can't right now. So this time was more talking with the different external outsourced partners and developers because we're working with a bunch of IPs. We're looking to make games, and so just catching up with everyone. It's been a while since I was at Capcom meeting with developers, so it's great to see what everyone's been doing, especially with all the mobile and social stuff going on. So, and my voice is almost shot.
You can totally talk about that stuff. They'll edit it out. Just
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
exactly.
I could just talk about it.
Yeah, on a live show.
Jeff shadowed me for a day. Day in the life of
Day in the life of Adam Boys.
Why don't you explain the Tron glove that everyone finds so intimidating?
the Tron drinking glove was busted out last night in our suite, and it helps me consume my alcohol. The colder it is, the better, the more power I get, and it looks really effeminate too.
It just transports you right to the grid.
Yeah.
Speaking of the grid, Johnny,
Oh, shit.
what have you been up to the past few days? What have you been up to for the past few months? Yeah.
First of all, let's do an employment checkup. Are you still employed?
Yes, I'm still employed.
Fantastic.
We had people actually asking us, saying is Johnny okay? Is Johnny okay?
No way. He's still on the
Yeah,
job.
it was so funny because at Disney, people were like, it's so funny, like, there's this message about how propaganda closed down, and the comments are like, does John still have a job? So, yes, I do. Fortunately.
And I imagine all the guys at Propaganda were stoked to see that.
No, those guys are all my buddies. So, all right, so what have I been doing here? I came into town, and my initial intention was just to, hang out and see all my old friends and everything.
That sounds like, and the company's paying for you to come here?
No, see, Adam immediately has to tee it up, right? That's the problem. So, right, so Disney was like, I went and talked to Seropi. I'm like, hey, so GDC, what are we doing? And he's like, I think that ship has sailed, right? I'm like, okay,
Kind of like DICE.
right? Exactly. So, I paid for my own way out here, and then once all these meeting requests started coming in, I was like, so I'm getting meeting requests. What am I gonna do? And they're like, just expense it. It's fine. So anyway, that wasn't very funny. But as I move on and talk about what I've seen, I was
Also not very funny.
Because that's the next segment.
I don't know why you guys think
Is
that's
that the
so
next
funny.
segment?
I was just
What have
like
you seen?
trying to
Pregnant pause.
yeah, exactly, right.
Pregnant
And
pause.
a little bit of my Italian dramatics to it. I was on the phone actually with Craig, who's one of our good friends, and I'm walking around the show floor, and all of a sudden I'm like, "What is this?" And I'm like, "Craig, I have to call you back, right?" I put it down, and it's like someone has a Jerry Rice dog game. What? Have you guys seen this?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, it
It's
came up
got
in a
a
panel
booth.
that we were in
Right.
earlier
It's got a
today.
booth.
Yeah. It's got boof.
It's got boof.
It's got a booth. So it's Jerry Rice, but the logo for it is like Jerry Rice and a golden retriever. Where is that golden? There's a golden retriever in here. As
Yeah,
well.
there's a dog running
It's
around
like a
over here.
Nintendo
I don't even know.
right?
That's not
so
our dog.
That is my game of the show right there. I mean, amazing. Take the microphone away from
All
me.
right. John Drake, you saw a guy talking about dog football.
Yeah, so I went to two talks today. I went to Cliffy B's talk, which was interesting. He was entertaining as always. And the guy who is apparently behind Jerry Rice dog football, I don't know, is that the name of the game or is that just a description?
I don't know.
It's a working title. Jerry Rice Wolfball 2011.
Yeah,
Is,
catch it.
It's gonna be huge.
Yeah.
Fetch. He got up and asked a question to Cliff at the end of Cliff's talk, which was, and his talk was fine. He was basically talking about owning your IP and being a power creative, which sounded a little bit too much like power bottom to
Yeah,
me. He's
look,
just saying it
I'm
over
a
and over
power
again.
creative.
I've always wanted to be a power creative and really get the hips behind it. But it was actually a really good talk, and he made a lot of sense about a lot of things. He had his quips and his press quotes. But then this guy came up and asked him, so he started talking about this company that he founded, how he really agreed with him about owning his IP, and he sort of, I think he got a little nervous and started talking in sort of a long form
I'm just going to keep words are going to keep coming out of my mouth, and hopefully a question will eventually form.
And then at some point he switched over to just describing his game, which was, I believe, Jerry Rice. It was no one's ever taken a chance on dogs playing football before.
all these games about dogs playing poker.
Can you believe that?
And he said, no publisher wanted to give us money up front, so we raised our own money, made the game, and now publishers are interested. And it was like actually a really nice story and a really nice question.
Yeah.
But in the middle of it, he just goes, no publishers wanted to take a chance on dogs playing football. And Cliffy just goes, I can sort of understand that.
As an ex-publisher, I would have not signed that.
Right.
Yeah.
But the guy was super sweet, and there were a bunch of really good questions. And then we went and saw Sweary's talk from Deadly Premonition, which was the most surreal, bizarre post-mortem. I don't even really know what was going on.
Coffee drinking.
He brought a coffee pot and had it brewing coffee on the table of the conversation. And would
Why wouldn't you?
Occasionally pause and just look into his coffee like he was waiting for it to tell him what to do next.
Well, so that's from the game.
Yeah, no, it was, yes. So the two best stories from that, though, I believe, are one, he said, someone asked the question, so if you had, in the middle of making Deadly Premonition 1, if you had $1 million and all the time you had to add two more features, what would you do? And he said, without missing a beat, in Japanese, and then the translator said, I would have had the hero ride a bicycle.
Of course.
And I would have had him able to wear cologne.
Naturally.
I mean, that's really all that game needed.
Yeah, and then it would have been a perfect game.
biking
And then but since he said two things, he sort of like let it hang there. And everyone was like, is there going to be or it added a level, or I would have had QA maybe polish what the hell was going on.
I'm more into the idea that it would take $1 million and an infinite amount of time to implement a bicycle and cologne into
Do you
the
know how hard
game.
it is to do
Bicycle animations are
smell-o-vision?
1 million troops.
Smell-o-vision is not easy to do.
Have you been on the floor? There are people with the game skunk.
That's happening.
And it looks like a pencil sharpener, but then there's a hole in the front that just emits mist.
Mustard gas.
Yeah, exactly. And there are flavor cartridges in it that will spit out rose scent or
nobody should be interested in
Or
that.
zombies.
Because if
Or-
somebody hacks that, pirates that, and makes poison.
Oh my
pirate smells.
Pirates.
I'm bootlegging
terrorism,
you.
the only
Poison
thing
smell.
that smell-o-vision
This
can be
smells
used
like
for.
poison.
I accidentally bought an unlicensed game. It's not like the Game Genie or Game Shark. Like it might break your nest. It's like I bought an unlicensed smell cartridge, and now I can't see. Like, oh well.
And it was ricin. And now
Everything's fine.
The others.
Modern Warfare 3 is going to support it, and that'll be exactly it. It's like it comes with the ricin cartridge. Like if you lose, like if you mess up, it's going to totally get you.
The other Swery slide that I thought was pretty amazing was that he was talking about how he wants to make his characters good, but also have a little bit of a downside to them. And the title, and so he had like this girl is like a mother who would care for you, but also she can't cook. That was like one of his examples. And he,
So she just
but the,
buys you a lot of
title of the
McDonald's.
slide was
can only breastfeed.
you take the good, you take the bad. And I immediately turned to Abby, who was with me, and went, "Is he gonna talk about the facts of life?"
Let's hope.
And then without missing a beat, he said, it's like poisons, every rose has its thorn, and every cowboy has watched the facts of life. And then
Can we get a verification on that?
What do you do? That was pretty much right.
That's exactly what he said,
That's
word
pretty
for
much what
word.
and it was, and everyone in the panel started turning around looking at each other. It was like, I guess he meant it. He was talking about Tootie. I mean, like,
I'm guessing that his translator might be the greatest genius on earth, and Swery's just like super serious the whole time. I think we need a fact checker, like actually,
Right.
like a Ben Judd, that's there just to double check it.
He was
said that.
giving
That's-
sales figures, right? And then in translation, just got completely lost.
yeah.
Like
So,
42 units.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
but everyone had a big smile on their face, and that dude's a total badass. So it was a fun talk.
Yeah. Is that? I mean, that seems like a great example of game design that can only happen in Japan. It seems like where you're going to deliberately make something totally crazy, and find a way to make it work. What do you guys think about Japanese game development these days? As kind of people that are making games here.
Here's a loaded question.
I grew up on
because
Japanese games.
Quarter mile.
I mean, yeah, I think we all grew up on Japanese game
No, some
development.
people did
and-
PC, right?
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true. I guess I was kind of straddling the line even then. But it seems like if you look at the popular games here in North America now, it almost seems like the PC developers won in a sense, where it's you're seeing a lot of that Western design is really kind of risen and taking control, where all these PC developers that are now making games on Xbox and consoles and stuff like that are the games that people want to play, whereas Japanese design feels often a step behind, especially when they're trying to do shooters and things like that, where it just it seems like there's usually something missing.
All right, so I'm going to argue with you real quick and
Yeah.
just tell you that I didn't think Vanquish was a step behind. I actually thought that was really dope.
Yeah,
And,
that is a great
amazing-
example. You're right.
Amazing.
You're right.
And you can't get discount Nintendo either, right? I mean, they're Japanese, but nobody really sees
Right,
them
yeah.
as Japanese, right? They're just they're so dominant. So.
But at the same time, it's like they're super dominant, but in a sense, they're kind of just off doing their own thing.
Yeah, they are.
You know, and Nintendo's always going to be Nintendo, regardless of what country they're building games in and all that stuff. I guess we're talking about. It's like Feel Plus is putting out third-person shooters that are ridiculous, and you're like, why is it? And
One thing, I mean, the budgets, there's a huge discrepancy between the budgets of Western games and Japanese games. Like AAA budgets, $30 million, $20 million, Japanese budgets, AAA, I think Vanquish was like $5 million or something like that. Don't quote me. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's around there.
It's being recorded right now.
I don't know any of the guys at Vanquish. I think I heard that publicly. So
I can vouch for, working for Capcom, that the internal budgets were, from Japanese internal development, was in line with the U.S. ones for AAA games. They were in the tens of millions of dollars for sure. But the other thing about it is the salaries of Japanese
are very low.
Yeah, especially when they go independent, I think there's a lot of overhead with the internal stuff. So I would imagine with an independent developer, it would probably be a lot lower.
Well, and those were intended to be worldwide titles, not games that were made for Japan and then brought over.
For
to
sure.
the
Yeah,
US,
and there's
right?
150 people on the team,
which is a different thing than
I think the games I end up enjoying the most that are coming from there seem like the games that were maybe more intended for a Japanese audience and brought over, because it really captures a very different feel and a very different flavor. Whereas when if it's trying to kind of mimic games that are big here already,
I want Japan to be Japan. I want Japan to be fucking crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I want that to sell. I want that to be a thing that can be huge like it was.
I want their industry to be able to support that, because
absolutely.
I've read interviews where like the sort of culture of you pick a company, you work there for life in Japan is sort of bogging down the whole process. There was this great interview with a development guy at Capcom who was complaining about this. He said, I got all these great ideas, but you're punished for taking risks.
Right.
And I said, well, that's a guy I want to make a game with. I want to see what kind of crazy stuff he's got, and I would love to just make a game with him.
And to that point, actually, I just found out that one big Japanese publisher, they basically, because they're worried about people leaving, especially now, because the West and the East are very different when it comes to, over here we stay with companies for 2 to 5 years and then we move on, right? In Japan, you're right, it's a lifetime thing. So they're so paranoid about people leaving that they force everyone in Japan to change their email address every 6 months. They do an automated system where they give them a new email address so they can't be plucked from the
headhunted.
outside. Which Western philosophy just says, why don't you just make the working, make it better to work there? Like make the environment.
That sounds like something
better,
Rockstar would do.
It does. They don't have email. They just throw rocks through windows with notes attached.
But what about Level 5? I mean, they're a great studio, and they've made it over to the West pretty well with Fresh to Layton. So.
Still kind of retain their identity.
Right.
Making identifiably Japanese games.
Yeah.
Well, when we try, I think when we try to emulate the Japanese, we just always get it off. Kind of like when they try to emulate Western development, they get it a bit off. And you want
grow
that.
Up there. I mean, it's a culture thing.
Yeah, and you want that. That offness feels genuine. And from working at Capcom for 3 years and meeting Inafune-san and Takeuchi-san, those guys, you just feel that sometimes they don't care. They want to be irreverent. They want to make their own thing. And it just feels comfortable in a weird way that's uncomfortable.
It's like a genetic mutation that just makes your species better as a whole.
Right.
Totally agree.
So, do you guys feel that there are ways to bridge that gap, by having developers overseas working with developers here, and actually getting kind of a best of both worlds, or are they completely incompatible?
I mean, again, back from my experience at Capcom, I think there's certain developers out there that get the Japanese sort of tendencies. I think Blue Castle did a great job with Dead Rising 2. I played through that, and I'm like, this feels like our guys in Capcom Japan made it.
Yeah.
It really did.
It was kind of like broken in the same way that the first game was. Like, way to go, Canada, you nailed it.
And except for the accent to boot.
Right,
up on the roof. But I think other teams, though, that don't get it, I think that's when you have a big clash and it just can't work.
So we actually worked with Konami doing Scribblenauts over in Japan. So that did really well. And a lot of Japanese people really loved it. Famitsu gave us like a 38 out of 40 or something like that. So that was really cool. Yeah, so a lot of people really were into that.
And Solid Snake made it into that version, right?
And Old Snake and a bunch of other stuff.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
That was really cool, actually. And the producer actually was, why am I blanking on his name? The Castlevania guy.
David Cox?
You go?
Igarashi?
Igarashi.
Oh,
And he
awesome.
was the producer, so he was like, dude, I love Scribblenauts in the West. And
Wow,
he's
yeah.
like, I want to get this game over to Japan. So, and he was the producer on the title. It was
So then, does that mean it has like better like hat and whip technology
It
also?
does. Super equipped, especially the hat. I mean, that was the most important part. He was like, gotta get that right.
Gotta get that.
How was that? How was the localization process of a game like that?
I didn't work on that side.
Is
I
it
would only
just?
imagine that'd be like a.
Is it just like katakana, or can you
One
enter
billion.
like English characters as well?
Yeah,
or?
absolutely both.
Fully-
They actually
fully
wanted to use it
translated.
as an English teaching tool. That was
Oh,
like
cool.
a big thing with it.
1 billion words.
That would actually make a lot of sense, though. I mean,
Yeah, no, totally. It's like it's,
Sweet.
I mean,
Nice. Yeah.
stop it.
Let's talk about ghosts.
So what everyone doesn't understand that's watching right now is that we had been, here since about 6 o'clock, and then we told multiple stories, and now here we are, and everyone's been prefaced with all of the retarded stories that we've done prior
Did
to
you say
this.
retarded?
I did. Oh, redact. Anyway,
Anyway,
makes a lot of sense.
Well,
No joke. I live in Seattle.
Right. Yeah, you said that earlier. All right, guys, no jokes about me. I'm from Seattle.
that's where I went. Let's go where you went.
now, Jeremiah, I know your time here is short.
I know.
You've got to
I do.
get back out onto the scene.
Yes.
But
thanks for having me.
yeah, no.
a lot of fun.
Thanks a
He's a
lot
team
for
of
coming.
handlers.
You're not leaving right now, are you?
I kind of got to
Can we not talk a little bit about your games and everything that you've done?
What?
What's it like working on a downloadable game as opposed to a handheld game? Has it
So
been?
it's interesting. A lot of people assume that hybrid is harder to make than Scribblenauts, but it's exactly the opposite. Because Scribblenauts, we had no idea what we were doing, right? We're just like, well, let's look at other games and see how they did it. No, nobody did it that way, right? With a shooter, right? Like, there's so many, kind of benchmarks you can go after, right? And the camera and the feel of the shooting and stuff. So there's a lot more that we could do. So even though it's 3D and bigger budget and all that stuff, it's way easier compared to Scribblenauts. A lot of people don't think that. So.
Cool, awesome. Well, I guess we'll let you go. Though I want to say, really enjoyed your talk at DICE.
Yes. Oh, thanks.
I thought it was really useful. I mean, even just it's like we're not making games, we're writing about them, but it's like a small company that's like looking to grow and continue to grow and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's like
The
I
big
feel like
thing-
some of that stuff applied.
Yeah, well, we knew that a lot of publishers go to DICE and stuff. So kind of the big message was just like, hey, make great games. Don't worry about the other stuff, right? Like a lot of publishers like, I need the PowerPoints and I need the beautiful design docs, and that's cool and all. But if you're gonna do that on the publisher side, right? Don't like bog down the developer with that kind of stuff because the consumer doesn't see your schedules, the consumer doesn't see your PowerPoints, the consumer doesn't see your beautiful design docs. I mean, yes, the design docs have to be written well, right? I mean, you have to convey your idea, but you don't need to like have an artist work on it, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like that's really, really important. And so some publishers kind of put a little more emphasis than they should on that. And so that was part of our talk was like, hey, make sure that make the game good because that's all that matters, right? That's really all that matters. Egos don't matter, nothing. Like us, it doesn't matter because they're not playing us. They're playing what we make, right?
Yeah.
And that's all that matters at the end of the day.
See, what's so funny is that all the meetings that we've had, it's been like, all pomp and circumstance, and I've been like, I just actually want to play your game.
Yeah.
Right.
No trailer. Don't even give me a trailer. Just put my hands on the controller.
exactly like don't
Do
even
you want
do
to?
that.
I'm like, yeah, I want to play that.
Yeah,
fair enough.
and I think that like especially at Disney, like the funniest thing in the entire world is when you're showing it to people. It's like the people that grab onto the controller are the ones that like you're actually talking to and connecting to because
Right.
those are gamers, you
Right.
know.
Exactly.
And so I think that's really really important, from a publishing perspective. That like when developers come in, you have to play the games
Yeah.
because that's if you're not a gamer, then
That's
why
it.
are you in this
Yeah.
industry?
Exactly.
You know what I'm
Totally.
saying?
Totally.
Like,
Yep.
Exactly.
And it seems like that's a dying breed sometimes. It seems like there's a lot of
It is.
damn suits.
because there's so much money, right? I mean, that's
Yeah,
the big
well, yeah,
thing.
right.
Ooh.
I wear suits. Yeah, don't even
But he's
do
got no
that,
tie.
right?
He's got no tie. No tie.
No, I do that because that's Johnny V. But like I
Wait,
think
Cowboy.
it's-
Cowboy. He's the programmer. Look at him. He's got a suit on. So
Yeah,
it's
He
okay.
gave a talk today.
He works for
Cowboy
Naughty
gave a talk
Dog.
today.
That's like some Joseph Abood. I mean, right? I bought
All right.
royalties.
Sport jacket brand.
Let's all say goodbye, Jeremiah. Thanks again for
Bye,
coming
Jeremiah.
out. We'll let you get off into the night. And Dave Lang.
Oh, the summon. The summon is another.
Say goodbye
seated-
to the camera.
No, what? Give him a wave.
Now we got.
amazing. Yeah, it worked.
Little known fact, Jeremiah's got the best sneaker collection in the gaming industry. Little known fact.
Believe it.
I want to see him and Suda51 go up against
So
it.
we've got
And
another
then- and then
programmer with a
me
suit.
also.
Jeremiah was a bullfrog.
Wow, now.
Was a good friend of mine.
You just want to go?
No,
You
I'm
want to
just-
get out of here? Go get something to eat or something?
I'm
No,
basically
you
just
want
looking-
to? You're harmonics.
I'm looking at you
sing
for all the
this.
edit points for later on when you're trying to chop this down.
No
Leave
editing,
all
man.
that
Oh,
in.
it ain't getting chopped down. This is straight.
This gets
dope.
broadcast out live.
gold.
If I cut it down, people end up going like,
know.
"Oh, they cut out all the good stuff."
Yeah.
This is live.
Dave Lang, Iron Galaxy Studios. That's a company that people might not be familiar with. You know, you're not necessarily getting
At their peril, sir.
Yeah, at their peril. Why don't you tell us what is Iron Galaxy all about?
So we split off of Midway before the whole Warner Brothers swooped in and kind of saved the day there. A group of us kind of broke out, started doing just like technical outsourcing stuff. Basically, like, you know, this project, the business guys get in a room and they're like, oh, this game, it's in trouble, has to ship Q3. So that's when they hire us, and we kind of go in there and do our thing.
Parachute.
Thank you, thank you, sir.
What projects have you worked on, Dave?
We've worked on some hot bangers. And
No, I think your logo is at the beginning of "You Don't Know Jack."
Yeah,
Exactly.
when you say
Oh,
hot
we can get into that, Jeff. Let me tell the story. Let me
Okay.
tell the Iron Galaxy
Okay.
story.
No, I'm sorry. You go ahead.
were they in the credits for you? Know Jack?
So then we've slowly been transitioning into full game development. We have like really good relationships with some people we work with and landed some XBLA, PSN stuff. We recently just shipped You Don't Know Jack with Jellyvision and THQ. We wrote all the jokes. We did all the funny stuff.
No, you didn't.
And no, the Jellyvision guys were in there banging on keyboards, making programming happen. And we wrote all the fun. It's a little known fact about the game. And Mike Builder,
Your name's Mike Builder. Is that your pseudonym?
pseudonym 50. What? I'll do this all day. What do you?
This is great podcasting, guys.
A weird
that-
pun threat.
That creeped me
No,
out.
but yeah, so we just shipped that. Basically, just tried to get out of their way, let them be funny. You know, gave them the platform to do that, and we've got a bunch of really cool stuff that, once again, we can't talk about yet. But it'll all be out this year, so it'll be really cool later this year.
From what you've demonstrated so far, I don't know why you wanted to get out of their way to let them be funny. I just
know,
think
it's
you
hard
should
to
just
believe, isn't it?
Yeah, taking the comedy reins.
And also, you
Thanks
might
for
want
stepping in, Drake. I appreciate it.
Yeah, really banging it out.
You might want to change the angle of your seat. They're seeing your profile, and it's not that becoming.
Let's profile. We profile off right now.
Let's do it. Profile off.
So now,
Now he's gonna stay there just to spite me.
now, what are you doing here at GDC other than modeling your chest?
Drinking.
Chess model.
So it's basically like business drunk. From, like, when you start, you kind of wake up and just vodka tonics all day long.
Okay.
So we redesigned the Heisman Trophy last night, and it's me giving the stiff arm to a indie developer with a vodka tonic in my hand, like this.
I'm glad he has a handheld mic.
Are you an indie developer?
Also, like putting a boot to his head while you're at it or something?
No, it's, clearly, Jeff, you don't know anything about the Heisman Trophy. You have to raise one foot.
No, it's that much I understand. I'm just saying, is it
It's
implied that the figurative boot is going to his skull?
So why are you smashing on indie developers
Are
when
you
you are
saying
one?
you hate indie developers?
No, I am an indie developer.
So you gotta hate all the other indie developers so you can out indie the
only
indie
way
developers?
Stomp on
the
them.
only way we'll succeed is by keeping others down.
Nice. That's
actually on
Very
the trophy.
impressive. Yeah, he actually doesn't have internet in the office. He doesn't want anyone on the internet.
No job searches, nothing like that.
no one has
then he
email
changes their
addresses at
email
all.
addresses every month.
Yeah.
Is that Billy Berghammer? What's up, buddy? I'm
We're
drinking
doing a
rum and coke.
podcast. We're doing a podcast.
So, other than being business drunk, have you gone to any talks or seen
No,
the
it's
show
basically
floor?
been a lot of pitch meetings, stuff like that.
lobby hopping.
Yeah, it's basically just meeting. The a couple of my guys are here, and they said they saw some really cool stuff. I think they liked the Remedy talk today. But that's a great.
Does anyone
story,
have the
so I can
Angry
tell you
Birds one?
Oh, yo, that's what I was telling you about.
No.
Everybody, sorry. I'm freaking out. Stop it, Drake. Has anyone, have you heard about this?
Angry Birds? No. What is it?
It's enough for
Angry
the talk.
Bird, it's this game. No, the talk, right? Where these guys got up and were like, where's my credit? Where's
Start asking questions.
Oh, it was
You guys haven't heard about
Yeah.
this?
Oh, was it
Definitely heard about
Rovio
that.
versus
Yeah.
that shit? Like the publisher versus the developer
No, it was
style?
the physics. Well, the
It
physics
was
guy
the
first.
physics guy, right? I'm not gonna actually
Tell the
be the
story.
no, hell no, because it'll get quoted. I'm not gonna be the guy that like retells that story. But
You could actually go and read ahead and read about that on
Suggested readings, like, you
joystick.com.
should-
All right.
Joystick?
It's already out there.
Now, Ben, what does that story have to say?
That story has to say it was that the guy, like you said, the physics engine guy, basically got up during the QA and asked what physics engine they used, and he said, "Oh, well, it's this one." And he's like, "So, are you going to give them credit?" And there was just an awkward moment of silence. And then the dudes from Rovio were like, we'll talk after this is over.
Well, then
and
he's
that
like,
was it.
didn't he say, I'm the CEO of that physics company?
Right. Yes, he definitely called himself out. Absolutely.
You forgot that.
Oh, I'm sorry. The crucial
that's
part.
kind of an
That's kind of
important
important. It's kind of important. That's fair. Excuse me.
Ghosts.
No. Sorry. Anyway, no ghosts.
Anyway, back to ghosts.
I don't want to get in the ghost thing yet. Anyway, go ahead.
No, that's it. That's the end of the story.
They also announced
There's no more.
they had sold 30 million on Android or something like that. Like on that.
I thought it was
alone.
like ad supported on Android or something.
I don't even know, but they had 30 million downloads then.
Okay.
But that's probably the most downloaded
That's
thing ever.
probably a
on
lot. Yeah, I don't know.
Troops.
Yes.
I have an
Millions
Android
of
phone.
birds. Crediting in games actually seems like it is kind of crazy.
It's
with
weird.
people
It is.
people leave companies and then they don't end up getting credits. And as more and more games get outsourced,
Do you want to speak about that, Adam?
Well, I mean, we have a talk often about at what point at the project, if you leave, is it okay to take you out of the credits?
Yep.
Dave, what? I'm looking at you, Dave.
Well, so
Because Dave hates. Okay, Dave Lang would love if the credits roll was blank for everyone. He's very
that's not true.
averse.
No, that's absolutely not true.
But you don't like when people double credit
the stuff that
themselves.
drives me crazy. Yeah, double credits
Yeah,
drive me
double
crazy.
credits.
So why don't you
people,
tell that
when
story?
like a year before the game is shipping, people are like, "Oh, so what's my title going to be?" That drives me absolutely bonkers. Like, just do your work. We'll roll the names. You'll be in there. And a story, right? That's credits are simple. It should be the simplest thing in the freaking game. So yeah, it drives me bonkers. But actually, a lot of times, like even if developers want to leave people in, like legal, publisher legal, like no, you got to yank them out, right? Like 'cause they might have they make a claim against us, fraudulent or not. And so a lot of times people get a bad rap for that, but sometimes it's like, this game is not coming out unless these people are removed. So.
okay.
Navarro was still in the credits for our games a while after he came back
Yeah,
here.
he was in Rock Band 3, but
Yeah.
I don't think he was in
wasn't
Dance
photoed
Central.
because
he wasn't
got-
photoed, and
And I think that we did somewhere like 2/3 of the dev cycle, or like that he had done, like someone in the studio had done like substantive work on part of the project that like basically made it possible to ship. Not like they were in a meeting where someone was like, "We should totally have that character have red hair." And he's like, "Yeah, red hair." And that
what if
the
there was
credit.
dancing
Right. Oh, I got it. He's the game creator.
centrally?
Yes.
No, it's weird because like you don't want to get sort of bent out of shape about it, but like when BCR2 came out, and I'm like, oh, all our old guys that were there when we signed it and worked halfway on it aren't in the credits, and I was like, and like, but you don't want to get too worked up because so many different approvals. I know actually manage the credit system.
Credits.
What's that?
No one's reading the credits.
No, I know, but it's just
ultimately
it's a
it matters to
pride
us,
thing.
right?
No, and it's like a nice pride point, but
It's
it's like
goofy,
at-
but yeah,
at the end of
nobody
the
like, it
day-
doesn't matter if it's because it's on my resume or whatever.
Exactly.
Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But there's just that weird, internal thing that you're like,
Yeah.
Because I mean, they had the whole entire Grin staff.
Right.
That when Grin went under, they had them all in the credit. Whatever.
Well, you spent part of your life working on something.
Yeah.
How about over at Naughty Dog? Is there?
Well, depending on how far into the project you leave, you might get very special thanks or maybe just special thanks.
They have different degrees.
Then you just send it
super,
all.
Then you just get
hugging
thanks,
special
and then you get babies. You get in the babies section if you
get
left
like
like
a
in the
high
first 3 months.
special thanks.
Game babies.
Yeah.
So how far? Like, what is the rule?
It's all by seniority. And so we group by discipline. You sort discipline by alphabet, I believe. And then inside each discipline, it's like programmers. It's just all by like when you were hired on, and that's it.
But no joke, every game that we are finishing, it becomes like every time they're like, we are not gonna have a credits fight about like how we're doing the credits and who wins in like what category, and then every year it's like another round of well maybe
It's a
we'll
big
do it
thing.
by departments and people who didn't work on this game will work on the other game won't be in the credits, and it's like a huge.
And I
discussion.
imagine like as there's more and more outsourcing
Yeah.
and just like different localization teams and stuff. I mean, some credit scrolls. I mean, you
500 people,
Yeah,
yeah.
Go watch Assassin's Creed 2's credits.
Yeah.
I will say,
Go watch
achievement
the
for
Rock
that.
the Rock Band Beatles credits.
It goes on forever. Well, in the Black Ops credits, there were like 3 full songs that
Right.
played.
Yeah.
And I let it roll.
Or how about the Modern Warfare 2 credits where it gets to the publisher side credits and the scroll speeds up like 10x? It's like
I will say one of the nice things about Naughty Dog is because we are so flat, it'll just be like lead programmer and programmers. There's not like lead UI assistant
I like that.
programmer,
Yeah.
then like an adjunct programmer to the main networking
it was
guy.
a really hard thing for us trying to build this database and give proper credit to people. And it sounds like there's just no proper crediting guidelines for the industry out there.
It's
That-
also
There is
daunting.
not.
No standard.
You know,
Yeah.
when like who's in charge of it? Is it the producer? Is it like the programmer? And when that one person is like giving like you're in charge of the credits, all of a sudden there's this whole like I have to make sure every person that's ever touched this game ever
Right.
gets in there
And feels
it's a
respected,
daunting-
like,
That's
feels-
why. All right.
and because they're gonna have that same feeling when they watch it.
That's
They're proud of
why.
it.
Actually,
Maybe they should put up a
that's why-
website.
I really respect
Like Duke
Gearbox.
Nukem, it's working out great for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I respect them for doing that, right? Because it's like, all right, open call. How many of you guys actually touched this game? And I wanted to be like, yo, I did.
Duke Nukem game.
Right.
Johnny V, lead VO actor.
I did the haircut on that. Like, I decided that he should have like a buzz
once
cut.
that inspired them to do
Well,
design.
I thought it was interesting that there's like so they have check boxes on the website about like what division of this game did you maybe work on, and there was one for press. And it was like, were you a media
Jeff, you
guy
submitted
that
your own
was
name, didn't you?
significant? Like, and I was like, well, I talked about that game once. I didn't actually submit my own name.
Yeah, you did.
No, it's actually I actually the only game I've ever been credited in is Guitar Hero 2, and my name is misspelled. It's like a thanks section.
Gertzman. Is
Yeah.
it Gertzman?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's misspelled,
Johnny V
so.
still calls you that, by
You
the
guys
way.
make fun of me for that.
Gertzman.
I don't mean
He's just
to.
doing a Jeff Keighley impression.
JV, did you know that in Tron, Iron Galaxy is credited as mocap talent?
Shut up. Are you serious?
We're credited as mocap talent in Tron.
Well, you were in the suit for a while. I mean, right?
It's the hand.
We
You
did
give the
mocap.
drinking glove.
I'm not gonna. We were. Yeah, but no. So thanks for that. Good job. Look it up.
I didn't know. Are you serious?
Oh my god.
Yes.
I think you're fucking around right now.
No. 100%. Do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do-do.
You have a good Tron story, Johnny.
No,
about
I
listening
don't
to
want
Tron.
to tell the story.
Okay.
You can tell the ghost
You talking
story.
about the threesome story?
Yeah.
No.
What? I don't think you
No
can
one
say
cares
I don't want to
that.
tell the Tron threesome story.
All right, so I'll tell it real quick. Real quick. It is, so I go back to Chi-Town. I'm hanging out, having a great time. And I'm hanging out with the Iron Galaxy dudes. And my fiance rolls up with one of her good friends. And she sees me, and I'm like, gooned. Right? And she's like, we gotta get you out of here, right? And this is all being told to me like later on, right? And so then I get in a cab, we go, and then apparently we went to 7-Eleven.
Of course.
And then at the 7-Eleven, it was like there's some booze there, and then the guy's like, well, we stopped selling booze at 2 o'clock. And it was 2:15, and then my fiance was like, well, he's gonna have a threesome tonight. It's me and this other chick, right? That was there. So we're all excited, and then
Only if you sell them the booze.
right, and so the guy's like, yeah, Grey Goose, like puts it down. Adrian throws down like a pack of Magnums, yeah. And then like, we go back to her friend's
I
house.
see why you were hesitant to tell. Go on.
Where's the Tron connection?
No details.
No,
Keep going.
it's coming.
Great.
So
Is
then,
it?
That's what she said.
I can't believe I'm telling you a story right now. So then we get back to the girl's place, and this girl's like best friends with Adrian or whatever, right? So they go outside and they're like, hey,
Don't skip the doorman. Tell the doorman part.
yeah, the doorman's like, hey, like he like tries to stop me, and I'm like, and these girls like, he's gonna have a threesome tonight. I'm like, yeah, all excited, right? And the doorman's like, all right, buddy, go upstairs, right? So I go upstairs. The girls go outside on the balcony to have a cigarette, and there's like one of those big like leather, like real big, like the double leather.
Yeah, like a high chair, like you're a baby.
Not a high chair.
I mean like a
Not
high
like a
deep on
baby,
chair.
right?
The deep couches.
Yeah, it was so funny. So I got all
Yes,
excited,
deep couches.
right? And I sat down in the chair.
Disrobe.
And then, I did disrobe. And then I was just in my undies, and the girls were outside smoking. And so then I was like, oh shit, like, what's missing from this right now? Some music. So I pulled out my fucking phone, which is like this little piece of shit, right? And I went to YouTube, and I was like, Tron Legacy End of Line Club theme, and I hit it, right, and it's like dun, 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 and like I put it down, and I sat there, right, all excited, and the girls walked in and like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, you didn't think you were really gonna have a threesome, did you? And I was like, and they sat there for 2.5 minutes and laughed in my face. Wah wah.
That sounds highly erotic.
Yeah, it was.
Because when I think deeply passionate, soulful music, I think Tron
Tron soundtrack. Yes, definitely.
Guys with helmets.
So
Terrible story. All right,
so
there.
Tron has weighed heavy on your brain then since the release of all that
all
stuff.
the time,
Is
yeah.
that-
Tron is awesome.
Yeah.
You guys see the Tron Jeremy thing?
Yes, I did. I actually did see that. Yeah, Ron
Thank
Jeremy
you.
doing
Right.
the Tron stuff.
It's like
yes.
you and me, right? It's like
Yeah.
Mr. Hands, Tron Jeremy. Like,
Yeah,
we
the
connect.
important shit.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
definitely.
Anyway.
All right.
Hit your wagon to that story.
Yeah. Hitch my wagon to Mr. Hands. We'll all end up dead. All right, with that, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in a little bit. But, there's a bar behind this camera. We got to visit it for a little while. So stay tuned. We'll be back. We are back. Man, it is getting a little rowdy.
Reckless.
A little
Reckless.
rowdy and reckless in here.
Thanks. Yeah, you look at me and you say that, huh? Jesus Christ.
So I thought, I was looking around the room and I realized, like, all you guys are from or worked in Chicago, which, you don't necessarily hear a ton about as a big game development mecca these days. But I know you three, Johnny, Adam, and Dave, y'all did time at Midway, and you never, you guys just
I think the
lived
three of us
there.
officially sank it. I think the three of us.
The three of you are the reason
Oh,
that.
someone said that on the comments. It made me so upset.
You sank Midway?
No, yeah, I called you about this.
Well,
like,
did
Johnny does not do well with reading.
Did you greenlight Freaky Flyers or Gauntlet Seven Sorrows?
One of your,
Yeah, which year of it?
Man.
Year 3 or year 7?
one of your guys was like, yeah, everything that like Vinyagi touches is a complete disaster. It goes to bankruptcy. And
This is shocking news, I know.
Oh shit, someone connected the dots.
Right. And so I'm reading this and it's like dude was at Midway crashed. Guy went to Boaster, that crashed, and I'm like, now I'm at the largest entertainment company in the world, bitches.
Well, I can't take down Disney, or maybe I can.
You'll find a way.
You just needed a new challenge, man.
I know.
Everything else was too easy.
Achievement unlocked, right? Veteran mode.
So
I was mortified.
I went to Chicago for the first time, I think, in 1991, and it was for CES when they used to have.
1991.
They would have. They would have
I was 6 years old.
Yeah, they would have 2 CESs a year. Well, I was like 17. I mean, what? You started going to trade shows when you were like 16 or 17, right?
That's true. That's true.
Patrick
You're
Klepek joined
17
us,
now,
by the way.
17 now.
Yeah, I just turned 18.
So yeah, it was the same type deal. I was in
the
high
math.
I was in high
Do the
school,
math.
going to CES, trying to meet dudes in the game industry. Trying to meet dudes.
Just trying to meet dudes.
Yeah, that came out exactly right.
Yeah.
Just trying to meet dudes
Exactly
in the
right.
game industry.
And you know what? Look at Jeff now. He met a lot of dudes.
I've met a lot of dudes in my days.
All right,
guys.
this is gonna be a disaster.
Chicago cast is going just the way it should.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the BattleTech Center.
Yes.
So good. Yeah. So good. Yeah.
And and then they eventually added Red Planet and fucked the whole thing up. But like, location-based entertainment. How many of you guys working on games like that? That's a real topic starter? You guys all into that? And you're gonna start? Yeah.
It's good if we all nod and don't respond, right? Just quietly.
Totally. This is perfect for the audio version of
We
this.
had
It'll
this
go
thing
up later.
called Disney World.
Never heard of it.
I thought it was called Threesome World in your world.
God, I'm so upset about that.
So unhappy.
So exciting. Ratings.
Right.
So the Chicago game industry. I mean, obviously, NetherRealm was still there, kind of as like one of the last remnants of Midway, I guess I would call it.
I was talking
you're
to
there.
somebody from NetherRealm last night. They said I have no idea how big they are. They're 150 still.
Holy
So many people still there. It's crazy.
Awesome.
And then they're just kind of working on MK, right?
Yeah.
It's,
I don't. Who knows? I mean.
yeah,
who knows,
yeah,
right?
that's
But,
true.
yeah.
I mean, we know they have an NGP dev kit, so they're probably working
We
on.
don't know that
So
officially.
that's why they have 150 people.
Nobody knows
There's
that
150
officially.
people on the keyboard.
Just watching the kit.
That rear
Watching,
touch
making
screen.
sure no one touches it.
So
talks about it.
now that you guys have kind of seen the well, except for Dave, who is still repping Chicago, but now that you guys have seen the world, as it were.
I brought Dave to Europe for the first time. It was like watching a small child discover the Earth.
It's like, it's a place you've only ever seen on TV. It's like this magical land that doesn't. It might as well have been like the fucking Grid to me. It's like you go to this place, like this really exists. Holy shit, weird exit sign.
They have accents.
Holy shit,
Weird exit signs.
That's the first thing you
That's
notice
Chicago's tagline.
when you get out
Well,
of
you
the
know,
airport.
Patrick, it's a city that was taken down by fire. So wherever Dave goes, the first thing he does is look for the fire exits, making sure everything is safe.
They
How's
speak
your
in these
band?
strange tongues.
What's different about Chicago in terms of like its development scene and stuff compared to you're in LA and obviously you're out here now? Is there something unique about Chicago? Basically, why do the people in Chicago stay in Chicago? It doesn't seem like there are a ton of developers out there. Is it just
Have you ever
know,
I think
you don't
is
know.
it like low cost of living and
No, that's not something I personally
family.
understand either. Because born and raised there or whatever. Got my first job out in Salt Lake. Did a bunch of stuff out there, and like came back. And
Salt Lake?
were you
Salt Lake? Yeah. there we go.
were you at Iguana
Yeah, I was at Sculpture.
Oh,
Then
yeah.
They turned into Iguana. Then
working on
Kodiak.
wrestling games?
Yeah. Then Microsoft out there. Well, it was the Access guys that became Microsoft.
Is that the indie build?
They turned into indie build.
Okay, so you were not there for AMP 3.
No, I was there. So I was at Microsoft.
He still puts it on his resume though.
When AMP 2 and Lynx for the first one for Xbox dropped, and they're so busy then. Yeah. But anyway, then.
Really busy. I was making mad cash.
It's so awesome. It's so good.
38
Cash,
G's.
money.
I don't know. Hold on.
G's a year.
You've seen the robot arm. Have you seen it? It's fake. Anyway, but yeah.
This is good stuff.
It's fake. Dude, the Sasquatch.
What was the? I'm sorry. What was the question again?
What is it about Chicago that attracts that number of game developers? Like I know obviously it has. It all kind of comes back to Midway.
All right,
right?
wait. Drake is gonna speak.
So the thing about Chicago and the thing about the Midwest in general is that, like many sitcoms on CBS, there are hot women willing to bed large, pasty men.
I'm moving.
That's what the Midwest
If you
is
were
mostly
making
made
fun
up
of me right now,
I'm on a-
I got them to cease talking.
I didn't
yeah,
look at
you
you
kept
one
looking
fucking
at me.
time.
Actually, John was the commenter that really got you upset.
Yeah, I've just been following your career and trying to snipe
John,
you
the
in
only
comments section.
non-rotund man aside from Patrick on this panel. Yeah, I know where you're coming with that.
Taking it down. But it's a nice place to live. It's a well-planned city. You got good public transportation.
Chicago,
A
well-planned city.
Hey, I live in Boston, and it snows like a foot, and all traffic just stops because the roads fucking curve, and now it gets to terrible. You'd be
Poorly
happy to live in the
planned
west,
city.
west of the Midwest.
You know
where
what?
Everything was gritty.
Fuck Boston.
Fuck. Oh God. I do not want to see anything from here popping out.
No, I just mean as a poorly planned city. It should
Oh,
be
sure,
better
yeah.
planned.
Fuck Boston.
I
That's all
think
I'm
you
saying.
guys should fight or something.
No.
Who?
That's all.
Yeah,
Which,
probably.
me and Adam?
I think you know. Actually, the same true about Vancouver is that people don't like to leave. Like when they have family and layers of family, and stuff like that, they don't want to leave, right? And Canadians just are allergic to America usually. So I took a lot of injections before I came down here.
That
Okay.
explains a lot.
See,
Yeah.
for our side of things, I mean, obviously, you've got Game Informer out in Minnesota. There's some stuff down in LA,
Yeah.
and you have kind of like bloggers kind of spread out in whatever weird parts of the world that they can work on a blogger's salary. But the bulk of it is here in San Francisco. So it's always interesting to me to see just like, there are different scenes of, it's like the Austin scene and like Vancouver and stuff like that. So, just like, what was it like? What was Midway like? I mean, you guys were there as they were transitioning like out of arcades into the home market, right? That has to be like a crazy time.
I think me being from small town Canada, moving to Chicago was my first, like I lived in Ireland for a bit, but moving to Chicago, working for Midway, I'd worked at EA before, so I was used to a very corporate, sort of regimented thing. And I remember it was week number 2, and we were having a company-wide conference call, and what happened was we're all dialing in at the time, and they screwed up the dial-in so everyone could hear.
Exactly
So
where you're
everyone
going.
could hear everyone else.
Such a disaster.
So there's like
story.
buzzing, and people are like, oh, I can hear, I can hear. And all of a sudden, I hear this accent. Yeah, hello, this is Neil. I own your fucking dreams. And I'm like, and the EA and me just like, I'm literally pooping my pants. I'm like, somebody was getting fired. I should leave, right? I was like, what is this about? And so they finally figured out, like everyone's joining and leaving, beep, boop, like leaving the conference call.
Right.
Afterwards, I'm like, what was that? We own your fucking dreams. And like, that's a pretty good story, Adam. 3 years ago, Neil Nicastro, who was the old CEO at the time, is holding a company meeting. Now, apparently a lot of people had wanted to ask questions at the company meetings, but he was never really comfortable addressing the whole company. So finally he said, okay, HR, I get it. I'll answer questions. So this one guy, he's like, okay, so he's in the meeting, and he always used to hold his cigar, used to smoke it before they made that.
Before that was
line.
like not cool.
Good Chicago guy.
Yeah.
No, Neil Nicastro was like, yeah. I mean, I didn't work there with him, so it was all anecdotal. These guys, Johnny could probably vouch more. But so he's got his cigar in his mouth. He's like, okay, so apparently we want to answer some questions. So anyone got a question? This like sheepish artist guy in the back. He's like, I have a question. He's like, okay, what do you have a question?
Actually, it was the cat that claimed he invented the Wii.
Oh, the inventor of the Wii.
Oh, okay, well,
What's up his hand?
inventor of the Wii
And
is
he was
there,
like,
that's
okay,
YouTube,
what's your question? He's like, so, in our contract, it says that, you guys own the IP that we create, but, I've been working on this thing at home and with my friends, but not in the office, just at home. And he starts explaining that he's been creating this
Common
thing
question.
for, like, yeah, like
sounds bad.
about eight,
Yeah.
8 minutes into it, and Neil's just pacing, like, Neil's just a can-do dude. He's just like, I signed shit I put people in the drink. That's what I do. So finally,
Sleep with the fishes.
so
Freaky flyers in stores, Q4.
Finally, right. So this guy's like, so would you? Is that something that I would have to get a clearance approval from my manager to own that or what? And Neil's like, you know what? We own your fucking dreams. Meeting's adjourned. And he fucking walks out of the room.
I thought maybe he threw his cigar at that point.
That would have been shoved in his face.
Never wasted.
So that was, I mean,
Yeah.
for me to hear these stories, being from EA Small Town Canada, I was like, I think I'm in the wrong town. I need to go.
But the food is really good.
Because that was the one thing you always heard, like when you weren't at Midway, you always heard, dude, they're run by the mob. They're run by the mob or whatever.
See, that was what we always heard about Acclaim.
And then Captain Salt Lake shows up. He's like, they're run by the mob.
No, dude, I remember my first week. This was crazy. So there's this weird SNS Deli is like right around the corner, right? And I'm sitting there like, I don't know anybody. No one wants to go to lunch with me. I'm the new guy. Everyone's like, fuck the
Tall
new guy,
and
whatever.
clammy.
That lanky motherfucker. I was lanky then, not fat.
Do you want to clarify any further?
Yeah.
We'll get there. And so I go to that. I just walk in this SNS Deli, and I'm like, yeah, just give me a sandwich or whatever. And he's like, the guy's like, do you work at Midway? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, nice family organization. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm starting to freak out, right? I'm losing my shit. And then he's like, yeah, my kids love some of those games they make. I'm like, okay. They're totally dying. But yeah, so it was weird. You always heard those rumors, and then when you get there, nothing. Like, not in our time anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that we would always hear is that Acclaim was the company that was run by the mob. And that was always, you guys hear anything about?
Well, I mean, Johnny was there during the mob years at Midway. Why don't you
He's a made man. The other thing I remember hearing about those days, you bring up Neil DeCastro, like that was the name. Remember Fat Babies?
Yeah.
Hell of a sight. Hell of a sight.
We want to. Everyone keeps asking for a
It's become Kotaku.
No, NeoGaf, really.
Oh yeah, NeoGaf, you're right.
But you would see Neil DeCastro's name on there like every other day, just with some horrific story. And I'd never met him. I would never have thought of him as being like cigar smoking, that kind of crazy. He just seemed like fucking out of his mind from all these stories that would appear. It's just like, okay, Midway is clearly run by fucking crazy. It wasn't the mob. It's the fucking criminally insane. Like, who would run a company this way? Reading that stuff. I mean, obviously there's two sides to everything, but that's the beauty of Fat Babies.
What was the concept that Neil came up with that would sell millions of units? Was that one, Johnny?
I don't know. I don't remember.
There we go.
It's getting better. That's good. It's the response everyone's hoping for.
So about Catholic schoolgirls in a bus with a gun. I remember. No, actually, Neil was a good guy. No, Neil was a good guy.
It seems like it just kind of maybe got sidetracked more and more in the years after that. I mean, what were the first games that you worked on at Midway? Each one of you guys.
When you were shipping back, you were there earlier than any of us. You were there for like 8-9 years, right?
Yeah, we were working on Blitz. We were working on
Which Blitz? 20 or
2002.
Okay.
Talking to the mic.
I'm sorry, Blitz 2002 and Red Card Soccer, and we had a lot of things going on at that point. But what was crazy is that there was a division between arcade and home console development.
Right.
And what's funny, and I look back at it now, and I think that, if Midway hadn't made a $40 million investment in This Is Vegas, and if we had actually held on to everything, right? Mm-hmm. What's funny is that all the old school guys were brilliant about taking 50 cents for 2 minutes. Right?
Yeah.
And so now we look back and we laugh at how crazy everything was, right? But if iOS and everything that was happening with iPhone right now, and all those old school Midway guys were still there, Midway would be killing it.
I actually saw a talk where somebody said the original microtransaction was 25 cents, was a quarter.
Yeah.
And those guys mastered it. And actually, one of the biggest things I learned from Mark and Ed and Brian and all those guys was how to draw in the small compulsion loop of drawing that next quarter. Like, it has to be great and compelling, but you have to want to continue at the end of that.
Mm-hmm. And that was definitely one of the when Mark Cerny talked at DICE, was one of the things that he kind of drew out of that talk, kind of talking about, just the whole legacy of games starting back at arcades. He worked on Marble Madness and all that stuff back in the day. Was that exact thing of just like look at the Facebook games where the microtransactions fit, like look at the iPhone games and Android games and kind of how those work. That it really is this return to arcade days.
Yeah, it blows my mind again. Like if Midway was still around, I mean, there would be the most crazy apps out there.
And just like legendary, right? It's like that's the weirdest thing about like working there is you start off and it's like, oh, I'm a lead programmer on Slugfest or Blitz or whatever. Oh, Mark Turmel's got some feedback for you. It's like Mark fucking Turmel, right? Dude has made just incredible game after incredible game after incredible game. It's like, what? I guess I'll just say yes and thank you. It's like, what are you gonna do? It's like, I'm really gonna say anything to Sal or those guys. They're just like, they invented that stuff, and so you just gotta listen. It made for some awkward times though, because like as you like progress up, like eventually I was the studio TD there, and ostensibly like in charge of like all the projects, technical direction on all the projects. But like the MK guys have been making that game since like before I was in the industry. Like, what am I really going to tell them about making MK? Just get it out of their way, let them do their thing. Right?
Stop talking, Dave.
And so it made stuff like that a little worse. Like like it's not that they wouldn't listen. Like Ed and those guys were super good about all that stuff. It's just it made titles weird at that company because like these guys have been there forever. Everyone knows you're not going to tell them boo because they've earned it, right? Yeah. And it just made stuff like that really weird. But just so much you can learn, and really smart dudes.
I remember rolling into George Gomez's office once, and we had offices right beside each other. And I'm like, George, I got a question for you. So the original Spy Hunter, when you guys outsourced the motorcycle models to China, how many people did that take, and what was the rough cost? He's like, wah, 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 wah. He just loved the whole outsourcing thing. He's like, back in my day, it was 4 guys and a weekend, you know, and to work with all those guys, it was humbling. It was, I mean, Johnny spent the most time with all those old guys that did a fantastic job, and it was great to interact with them and joke about that stuff because they just thought the new stuff. They're like crazy 120-person teams. Back in my day, you know, 6 guys.
But that's what's so charming about all of the like iOS development, Android, all that kind of stuff, right?
It's back to the basics.
It's those same cats, right? So if you could imagine like there not even being, these platforms, right? I mean, these are the guys that like are pioneering everything, and so it's so super cool. I mean, I remember geeking out all the time with George, like, so is there a helicopter in Spy Hunter? He's like, we made it up. Like, is there a 12th key terminal to get into the Pleasure Dome? He's like, no. Actually, we put that in there. We never put the key actually in the game, so people keep putting more money in. Like that kind of stuff. It was
hot scoops.
Midway. They were all criminals.
You just blew my fucking mind right there.
Termel was gonna take that to the grave.
No, it wasn't even like that. I mean, but like those were like the pioneers of our industry, for the most part. And it's like, and Eugene Jarvis, Robotron, right?
Yeah.
I mean, talk about brilliant and addictive at the same time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that spawned Smash TV, and like I just actually, admittedly and stupidly finished Black Ops, right?
Yeah.
I'm like months and months and months late, which is why it's stupid, but I did Dead Ops, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, damn, this is like Smash TV. This is dope as fuck, right? And then I was talking to people at Disney about it, and they're like, oh, Dead Ops was so cool. I'm like, it's just like Smash TV. And they're like, what's Smash TV? And I'm like,
it's like Geometry Wars, but with zombies. Like, no, god damn it.
No,
right?
no.
It's like people don't, like you have to know your history in order to innovate, moving forward.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's, I look back at, my time, like my misspent youth in arcade, well, misspent, maybe not considering how it all ended up for me, but spending all that time in arcades, like, Midway and Atari, who, like would later go on to kind of fall under the Midway umbrella, like those were the guys that were making the games that mattered to me growing up. So it was always really interesting to like kind of follow the Midway name through the years. And even as it started to go really, even as Freaky Flyers was coming out, and they were like, well, we're going to remake Defender, and I said, well, good luck with that. You kind of stood by and watched it all unfold, like hoping, like, oh, these guys are totally going to turn around because it's fucking Midway. They own all these great names. It's like, and with especially with all the Milpitas stuff, like all the Atari stuff falling under that umbrella. At one point, Midway owned the rights to RBI Baseball.
That's true.
So the research that was done recently, right?
Yes, exactly. So I recently fell down this horrible hole when I realized that Namco was putting out a baseball game on the 3DS, and it's they've been continuing that series that was getting translated over here as RBI Baseball for years and years and years. And I was like, man, someone needs to just localize this game, put it out as RBI Baseball. And then I just fell into this like horrible research hole of like, who the fuck owns RBI Baseball?
Yeah,
there was
right,
that
exactly.
XBLA game that was announced by some company that's not even making games 2 years ago.
I think what's most exciting is that there was a little bit. I think you actually broke a story, Jeff, about Blitz. Right?
Yeah.
With,
So
with EA,
it sounds like I mean, obviously EA's picked up the rights to that stuff with Jam coming back, and it sounds like that they are working on a Blitz.
Yeah, I mean, so quietly, all I had heard was that like they went in and got all the sports licenses out of Midway when it was in bankruptcy, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, like Jam I think was great, and it's great to see Jam being translated to all these different platforms, and Blitz will be awesome too. I mean,
it's really exciting that like Turmel is over there and able to like shepherd these projects, however much he can, and really do that stuff. Like it's heartwarming in a way. I think
it's more heartwarming now that Jams came out and was really good.
Yeah.
Because when we first heard the announcement, we
right,
were all like,
oh
flip
no.
the table. And being an XCA guy, I'm like, they're gonna destroy everything. And then Jams like, oh no, I kind of get it. That's awesome. And Mark's there to sort of.
It was definitely one of those things where talking to Trey Smith, who was I guess the producer on Jam, like. As soon as I started talking to him, he very clearly got it. And there's something about games like NBA. I mean, we have a fucking NBA Jam machine here for Christ's sake.
Exactly, right.
That as soon as you are talking to someone who gets that, like you can tell immediately. And he was like, "You should actually come see that." Like start to like, okay, let me show you actually the stuff that is really cool about this game, as opposed to these people that are just walking up and going like, "I can dunk."
Yeah.
And all that
I remember
stuff.
actually he demoed the game for me, and I was such a huge NBA Jam fan. And he demoed the game for me, and I was like, sweet. And there was always a moment when someone was coming down for a dunk where you could push them. Mm-hmm. And so I actually tested it to see if it was still in there.
Yeah.
And it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, I am like probably the most hardcore you can get with Jam and with Showtime and Hang Time and all those games. I'm like, that's still in there. And he's like, we still have a nod for all the even like old school hardcore fans of it, and so that like made me feel really great because they were honoring the guys that I looked up to as mentors.
Yeah, it's like, I think one of the favorite things like those games, one of the things that sets them apart is like the attention to the tiniest details and what the loving care and the craftsmanship like got put in. Like I remember I was helping in between, it must have been Blitz 1 and Blitz 2, I was helping Ballers 2 out, and they put that 2-on-2 mode in there, full court, and Turmel, he's like talking, he's like, the camera has to be like Showtime. I'm like, okay, cool, whatever. And I code it up and I do the thing. And he's like, this is not even. Next day when I get to the office, there's a fucking Showtime cabinet in my office.
Right.
And he comes over and he's just like, you look at it here and you make
play
it
this
happen.
goddamn game.
Right.
Yeah, it was.
Play my fucking game, man.
Then come see me on my couch.
Yeah, it was just stuff like that was crazy. Like, you want to make it like Showtime, and here's the cabinet, right? It's effing crazy.
Well, there's something to be said for when you're making these games now, next gen sort of reports of old games to sort of want to polish all the not glitches, because they weren't glitches. They were just sort of like what made the game, like the nicks and dents that made it like a cool lived-in game and not like a super robotic experience.
Right.
And I think there's probably a really strong desire for people who maybe didn't grow up with that game when you're looking at Q to be like, well, if, you can't really shove a dude who's about to dunk on your face. If you did that in real life, like you would get a knee in the nose and you'd be dead.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, but like you could do it in the old games. If it's not in here, then anyone who's buying this for nostalgia purposes is gonna be like, well, fuck these guys. They ruined me at Jam. I don't want to play this game.
So was that something like growing up? You guys that grew up in Chicago. Were you like very aware that Midway was there, kind of making games, and that there was a?
By the time I was in like high school, I was pretty aware of it. Like growing, I mean, like when I was like in like arcade times, I sort of had no like history.
Yeah, you were like
for what was going
3
on.
or something.
Like,
yeah. So
I wasn't born.
yeah, that's right. You were not born. So.
Patrick was.
But no, you didn't have an awareness of the brand stuff. It was just you went to the arcades, you enjoyed the games, and the brand was NBA Jam, not necessarily that Midway made NBA Jam, but you knew they made NFL Blitz. You knew they had that sports pedigree, and so the moment you saw another game like in that line, your friends had probably told you about it, and then.
Well, and there wasn't like arcade. I mean, there wasn't arcade criticism in the way there was that we now have like home.
No Metacritics for arcade.
And so like it was a stamp of it was.
Cyberball only got a 84, so we're not going to make a sequel.
You didn't have to walk up the machine and start slotting in $60. Just put it with 25 cents. You hate it, boom, I walk. It was still fun,
So but I mean, like it was the stamp of credibility. It wasn't necessarily a step that the game would be awesome, but you would give it a couple quarters, you would give it a chance because of that.
The fact that it was there.
Right. And then you find out that it's actually like, oh, it's like the major games company in the town that you're from. And so that's sort of fucked up. They're really close to that. I assume everyone's in some warehouse in LA, getting these things cranked out of them. They're right in town.
I mean, there was a while there for me when Mortal Kombat was really getting big, like MK1, MK2. You would always hear about an arcade called Diversions.
Oh no! Yeah. Oh my God!
Diversions.
When they would do the tests.
Yeah, and that was where they were doing locations.
I was in Chicago, so we would get like the different arcades in the Chicago suburbs and stuff. Like, would get those versions updated regularly, but like I would get, there were no texts or anything back then. But so it would just be like your friends would tell you like, dude, like Chuck E. Cheese has got like they have a test version of Mortal Kombat 3. It's like, shut the fuck up.
We're going over there.
And I remember,
he's like, I'm 6.
Get on my bike.
And so like back before there was no way to like verify rumors and stuff like that. Like the biggest thing was in Mortal Kombat. It was either two or 3, but it was that when the one where Sonya and like is chained up in the back with like Shao Kahn, and like that. There's a way to break her out.
Yeah. Right.
And I remember like the people at the arcade telling us, oh yeah, we got another version coming, Sonya, you're gonna be able to break her out, but like. That was not true. But those versions you didn't know. Like there was always so many. Like that was one of my favorite parts of going to the arcade was seeing like the new test version.
I think that ended up being like the most devious part of like Midway's quarter sucking strategy. Is you think about like MK2. Like after all, this was the rise of the internet was happening at the same time. You had people on news groups posting like, "Here's all the fatalities," or I was at this point I was still in high school, but I just wasn't going all that much. There was a MK2 machine at the Pizza Hut, so I would just like get on Usenet, like look at these lists of moves and go like, "I'm gonna go check all this shit out," and print it out and go down to the arcade.
You would go, what character am I going to go to the arcade with and play as? And memorize all their moves so that I can, when I finally beat somebody, do the fatality, do the combos, whatever.
And then they went and in one of the revision updates changed all the fatalities,
right?
Because they had all gotten out there. That was like Ed and John's big like, well, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I remember it just being heartbreaking. It was like the worst. That you're just like, why would you do that? Like
Diversions was like for me. In the time, like that was like when you're ready actually to like step your game up, that's where you go. And so there's actually a couple of cats that still work on Mortal Kombat to this day that were like the pros at Diversions, right? Mm-hmm. Brian LeBaron, Paulo Garcia, and Eddie Ferrer, and Lex too. And I don't know Lex's last name, so excuse me, right? But those cats were the pros, right? And those guys actually were playing arcade games and were the best, right? Like you step up the machine, you play against one of those guys, and it's almost like Tron, like A2, right? It's like you're playing against those guys, full circle.
So wait, there was a three-way version of Mortal Kombat? Is that?
Yeah, and like if you play against one of those guys, you get your ass kicked, right? And those guys were the ultimate. And you know what's so great is that Ed and John, right, when they were doing that stuff, they brought those guys into the Midway family, and so those guys still to this day, work on Mortal Kombat, and that's actually what makes, Chicago game development for me at least, like so still heartwarming, right? It's like those cats still contribute to the game and are still a part of it and still care and have heart into what.
There's a lot of loyalty.
Yeah, what Mortal Kombat is as a brand, as a franchise, right?
Well, how did you get your job there, Johnny, at Midway?
Playing Jam. I mean, that was my big thing, right?
Yeah.
So, but and I was one of the last cats that I called Mark Turmel like 26 times on the phone.
How did you find his number back then?
Actually, it was on
Usenet.
No, it was, when they would roll the credits eventually, right? Like it was like lead programmer was the first credit, Mark Turmel, and like. So I knew they were in Chicago because of Mortal Kombat. So it's like 411 Midway. Right, and they gave me a number, and so I called and I called and I called. I called 26 times, and finally I got a phone call back. Like I was just like, I just want to do an internship. Right, I know, right? Like old school stalker style
from the police,
right? Like kind of weird.
Back when stalking was
exactly.
cool.
This is back when you could stalk somebody.
Pre like who Star 6ix9ine, pre all any of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you earned it. Like you were going.
You filled up the tape in the answering machine, right? So they came.
Right, exactly. And I remember the guy that brought me in, he looked at me and he's like, you've worked in an arcade, you have run a small video game FAQ site, pre-game FAQs and all that kind of stuff, right? He's like, you're completely unqualified to work here. And he's like, but rips up my resume in front of my face. I'm in my little suit coat. I feel all good. He's like,
Sort of like,
he's like, Mark Turmel wants you to work here because you've been persistent about it, and so we're gonna give you a shot. And that to me was like the same thing with like Brian, Paulo, and Eddie and Lex, right? It was like, I will do anything I absolutely possibly can.
That's an amazing story.
Who knew that faithful decision would eventually close midway down years later?
Right. So some jerk, a giant bomb. Right.
He basically let the plague in.
Right.
Just like into the industry.
Yeah.
In that case, it was career suicide for everyone but you.
I just gave you the most heartwarming story. I'm talking to him. I gave the most heartwarming story. I mean, it's like
That was amazing. That was amazing, and then that was amazing. You brought that down real quick.
He's so pissed right now.
so angry.
I am so pissed.
Come on, JV.
Lang's uninvited.
Hug it out?
You want to hug it out?
No, fuck you.
Come on now.
But yeah, I mean, when I was kind of first getting started, like my first year, like I started a print magazine that kind of went nowhere. That was my first.
Which print magazine?
It's called Blaster. Lasted about 3 issues. And then I guess
Sounds like a ghost story.
Yeah, kind of. The story was, which I was unable to verify, so allegedly, that the guys that started the magazine, who had gotten a bunch of investment from the Sound Blaster people, ran off with all of it.
Sound Blaster.
So,
Blaster 16.
so I learned to be bitter when I was about 19. I got on my first magazine job, and I was like, man, fuck this business. And I ended up, I was in school for a little bit, which I needed because I was the worst writer in the world. Here I was writing for this magazine. It's just like I just had no business even having a job at that point. But then there was an arcade show in Reno, and I heard that Mortal Kombat 3 was going to be there. And I was like, I'm dropping out of this class and this school stuff and going to play MK3 and hang out with the Game Informer guys, and we're going to drink in Reno and play MK3. So yeah, it was a super early test version. It was like the first, it wasn't the first. It was like the first time I like saw like Ed kind of get up and talk. Like actually back at CES in the day, they had Ed and John signing autographs at the Midway booth.
As they should have.
Yeah, and it was like the only, and also like they had like Dan Pacina, like some of the characters from Mortal Kombat there, like in costume doing stuff, and it's just like this is ridiculous. Like even then, like even as much of like an MK fan as I was back then, I couldn't pull the trigger on I'm gonna wait in line and get some autographs.
Right.
It was too far gone.
But you'll do it now.
Yeah, now. Weirdly enough.
Now he's got Ed Booth's email address and home phone number.
That's true.
So you guys are down.
Weirdly enough, they actually sent out an autographed lithograph for like MK Deadly Alliance. That's like a Ed Boon signed framed thing, and it's totally like the first thing I moved into my house. Like hanging above the fireplace, like, all right, cool. And it was kind of like a joke at the time, but it's totally still there 5 years later.
It's so funny because like all those cats, it's like whenever you're around them, it's like it's a weird thing. I don't think a lot of people get in the industry because, at least for me, right, you look up to these guys. I mean, it's just like these are the game gods. Eugene Jarvis, Mark Turmel, Ed Boon, John Tobias. I mean, these guys are the game gods, and to be around them and listen to them talk and then be friends with them and everything, it's like you just learn so much, and just like every single day to be able to work with all those guys and hear them say everything from like a funny joke to actually like a good nugget for game design is just priceless, and it's something that you don't get nowadays in game development.
I was going to say, so I mean, obviously those guys were of a generation, you know, but who are the new?
George Gomez is a guy actually I should throw in there as well. I didn't, but I should.
Yeah. Who are the new game gods? Like who matters? I mean, like everyone kind of looks to the guys that are getting a lot of attention from the press and stuff like that. Guys like Cliff Bleszinski, guys like Hideo Kojima, Tim Schafer. It's like, do you think that they fill that same role? Or has game development changed so much that they're really, you can't just go to one guy for everything?
I think for that decade, like I would say, each decade it's a new group. Like I think this decade probably Notch, Jonathan Blow, the Twisted Pixel guys. I mean, there's a new school sort of decade of people that are inspirational. Now, can they Well, I mean, the real important thing about the guys at Midway is that they kept doing it. They kept killing it for years and years and years and decades. And so, if the new guys continue, I mean, Cliffy B is a perfect example. Like, as long as he keeps cranking out fantastic games, and people will,
Cliffy's a shit.
He'll still be notable and be the new guy.
I think the thing then is that they were making, I mean, like in terms of game design and innovation, at that point, making blockbuster games was a design innovation in its own right. Like making games that appeal to the masses and can speak to everybody and be compelling both in a quarter-based way and also in a home-based way was its own set of sort of platform-based innovation. And now the question is, are people making blockbusters the innovators and the game gods, or is it Jonathan Blow? Is it people making indie games by themselves in small teams of 5? Is it the fucking Angry Birds physics engine dude? Like, who is the guy really who's driving?
It's so funny now because it's like it all comes down to who's making the money, right? And that's what's getting like, because the video game industry is blown up so much, right? Yeah. It's like, all right, so who's making the money? Honestly, deep down, like, and those guys like bam, 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 right? But at the same time, I mean, like back in the day when we were doing it, it's like those guys with the game gods was still small enough that you actually cared, and they could give you
and a lot of those guys have to be very
information.
multifunctional,
right?
As opposed to like the guys that we're kind of looking up to now as these game gods. Like in a lot of cases, aren't they just really good managers? Or are they true visionaries?
Well, I mean, that's why the classic game track they've had at GDC this year has been so fascinating to watch, because you get people like Jordan Mechner breaking down making Prince of Persia and how he hand rotoscoped the animation, shooting his brother jumping, spending $11,000 on a camera and then immediately sending it back because there was a 30-day guarantee because he couldn't afford it. and that stuff, and watching that contrasted with a talk with Cliff Blazinski, it's all changed so much, and it's not even the fault of those guys. It's just these teams have scoped out to such a degree.
But it's become a team sport, right? I mean, like it's become full, and it's always been a team effort, but it's now become a thing where you're looking for Phil Jackson, not Michael Jordan, right? You're looking for the guy who's coaching a crew of people.
Nice Chicago.
Don't leave me hanging.
I didn't know. I thought you were gonna punch me in the face. But so,
he was.
And at this point, but it doesn't mean that they're not visionaries, because it's probably the guys who are in that first meeting and then they're in the last meeting where they're shipping the game, and that guidance along the process is important. It's what keeps the industry going, and with things being as they are, where every game is $30 million, it's the guys who you're willing to bet on, right? It's the guys who you're gonna bet the farm on every
That's
time.
why like the guys that do it like cross eras are amazing, because it's like you got like. So when it was like just 3 people on a team and all it was mechanics and controls, and they could do it then, and then you got guys like Ed Boon who are leading now a team of just huge team, just getting it done still, and that whole effing time, right? He goes from just programming, like doing code, like picking out frames of animation he uses, to now he's directing a team of hundreds of people or however big it is to deliver the same, the vision the same way he wants it done. That's why he's like super amazing, and all this group of like superstars, it's like. Yeah.
And I think the small guys, I think, are the ones who are making huge innovations in games. I think that the guys that we're talking about, these sort of team leader guys, are making huge innovations in entertainment. Those are the guys who we're seeing as like the leaders of making experiences that can speak to anyone. Like the guys behind fucking Connect is like, what? That's not really like a huge game
It's like
innovation.
700 people with what ever said, like, I make Connect.
Exactly. Like that's a crazy area.
Exactly.
But the guys making these, an iPhone game, like the 14-year-old kid who finally toppled and took over the top of the iPhone chart with his like physics game that he made by himself.
I saw that. Yeah,
that's
I was so happy for him, right?
And so that's the thing where it's like that kid's making a cool little game, and he's not making necessarily a huge entertainment experience to become a movie in 2 years.
At the same time, though, that really freaked me out.
Yeah, it's fucked up. You're coming for it.
I'm not 14 and I've not done that.
No, it's not even like that. It's like, is it that much the Wild West that a guy who has zero experience can do that?
Yeah, I think on certain platforms, absolutely.
I think it's awesome. Don't get me wrong, right? But at the same time, it's also scary, right? Because it's like, here I am, and everybody, right, that like have worked in the game industry for a very long time, and a 14-year-old kid comes along, he's like, "Hey, yo, I just
totally
made this."
Kicked your ass.
Yes, and that's awesome.
Hire that dude and get him to make the next Tron movie.
I mean, I think that's. I think that's
child labor laws might get in the way.
I think that's what Iwata was talking about, right? Where he was like, it's about quality, and I think that what he was saying got misconstrued and probably like twisted the way they wanted it to be. But I think he was like, don't forget that it's really important to make high quality entertainment. That's what makes people like and have liked and has expanded our industry the way it is. it's all about high quality entertainment. So don't forget that.
Yeah, I think it was like also like even though the 99-cent games are seeming like in the freemium and free to play and all that stuff, like don't forget you should be able to charge for things that you're proud of. Like don't forget that people will pay for good entertainment that you're proud but also they have to be polished to the max. That's the Japanese mantra is like they spend all that time making sure that everything is covered. And I think that was kind of his thing was like you should be able to charge good money for good entertainment.
But that's such a platform agnostic argument, right? That's the weird thing now is, and Cliff had a slide today in his talk where he was showing, I think he stole it from somebody's slide where it was like, in 1992, here were the platforms people were competing on, and it was like, Genesis. I mean, like there was like 3 or 4 platforms. It's like,
GDC.
Here's what's going on now, and it was like 70 different platforms where you had like Microsoft, and Microsoft was Xbox 360, Kinect, and it was like all these branches. And he says, basically, at the end of the day, the problem we have is it's the Wild West because a game like Angry Birds can come out on the iPhone, and everyone in the console is like, well, fuck that, we don't need to worry about that shit. That's its own like sort of segregated ghetto.
30 million units.
Right, and then it's just like, now we all rush towards that and go, so what is that doing? We should make that.
Well, then everyone jumps on.
Right,
it.
but it's different. It's not supposed to be the same thing. And what I think Iwata was talking about is like, you should be able to charge $60 for a console game that's 20 hours, but it doesn't mean you have to make it 40 hours to push away from
you're right.
a 2-second experience over and over again. It's just a different thing. Like, embrace what you're making for the medium you're making it for.
I think that, like, for me personally, the thing that I'm most excited about all mobile and social, because everyone's talking about that, and like, oh, social's big bubble, like, oh, mobile this, mobile that, right? The thing that I'm most excited about with everyone that's doing mobile and social is that whether they realize it or not, they're driving people into the video game industry. And so, like,
the gateway drug.
Exactly.
Wait dealer, and you'll be smoking wild crack in no time flat.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, so people are so threatened. They're like, should we be doing this? Should we be doing that? Like, please let everyone do what they're doing because you know what? Like, it's eventually those guys are just getting into mobile and they're just getting into like social. They're gonna get into what a lot of us are making, right? Where like the 20-30 hour experiences. So I'm like a huge fan of all mobile and social. Please grab everyone in the entire world and bring them into buying video games, buying consoles. Like, absolutely, I completely embrace that.
I think people get freaked out. Oh, go ahead. Go.
I know everyone wants to talk about, right?
I was just gonna say, I mean, the thing is that the first publisher that's gonna stop and just stay back and take a really holistic approach is going to be the one that wins. Because right now they're all like being very reactive, be like, this is making so much money.
Yeah.
Let's go there.
If we don't have a Dragon Age Facebook game, this whole thing's doomed.
Exactly. And then they do it. They're like, that cost us $4 million.
Like, what are we getting back from
it?
Like,
nobody's
is it really
thinking
building? Are they really looking at it in terms of like we're making a good game, or are they looking at it in terms of like we're building awareness?
Right. And that's honestly one of the biggest frustrations of being a publisher.
Facebook stuff.
Or
like,
we've done like mobile stuff. We've done iPhone stuff and things like that.
I remember, wasn't there some sort of like Rock Band symbol?
Rock Band icons
game,
which is in no way similar to Bejeweled. It was sort of like an outsourced thing that MTV Games was putting together. It had some. The nice thing for that was actually it had Rock Band network tracks, some of like undiscovered bands as the background audio. So as you were matching icons, you heard some music and could find out about some groups. But it was just sort of like, oh, there'll be some Rock Band icons coming down the screen. You match them up. You think about the game Rock Band. Same thing with we did a thing with Pepsi where we were on the caps of a bunch of Pepsi bottles across the country. And it's like that is good brand awareness, but it doesn't mean that you can develop a shitty game with good brand awareness and have it be a compelling experience that people want to play for more than 5 minutes. Which is the danger when people start thinking, well, Facebook games aren't something we need to worry about because they're a different area. Where it's like, yeah, but they have the hook mechanic where people are coming to them, and I play the shit out of every PopCap game. Like I don't want to play Zuma Revenge all the way to the end, but I played it all the way to the end, even though I had to take a sick day off of work to finish it on my cold medicine. I just played it till it was done. But it's like that game is hooky as shit. I played it until I was finished.
Yeah, but like PopCap is different from, and their games are different from like what Zynga's doing.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
You know, like Cityville, right? Like it finally took someone to like Adam or Dave slap me across the face and like, why are you playing this game as much as you are? And I'm like, I don't know.
Compulsion.
You know what's great about I interviewed the Dragon Quest creator Yuji Horii a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him, what are you playing right now? Like other than Dragon Quest kind of consumes your life. You're doing anything else? It's like, I'm addicted to Cityville.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm not going to tell you what my Facebook name is because I don't want everyone to add me. But he was,
Right.
But I think the thing is, like gamers and some developers get scared because they think well, that's where everyone's going. We should go that way, and we're not going to be able to make the games that we want to make anymore. But if people come in, they will maybe they'll play the games that we talk about and are passionate about, but maybe they won't.
Yeah.
But it's not all going to disappear. Yeah. Just because Cityville's doing really well, Farmville's doing well, Frontierville's doing really well, doesn't mean that Dragon Age and Mass Effect are going to disappear. And I think that's the knee-jerk reaction, is thinking because those games are getting popular and the attention, that the games that you grew up on aren't going to exist anymore.
I mean, again, I'll say this, right? Like, the huge divide is that there are so many people intimidated and scared by... Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Terrified.
Don't be scared. Like, these, like, iOS, Android, and Facebook is like, oh, what are we going to do? And the entire industry is going to change. Like, no. You don't realize that for everyone that's actually playing your game, they're also playing console games. And you know what? You should look at it as a blessing that everyone else that they're bringing in...
Because if you only get a small fraction, that's great.
I don't mind.
That's all you need.
Right? Because eventually, it's like watching YouTube videos and then watching a movie, right? It's like, eventually, these guys are going to get into seeing the quality.
It really is kind of the beautiful thing about how all this stuff is changing. And it's been interesting for me over the years because... as mobile rose, as Trip Hawkins and Digital Chocolate kind of got out there back, pre-iPhone, and started spending all this money on just mobile development and Brew and all those J2ME and all that stuff. You have a businessman come to you someday and go, "Why aren't we covering this stuff?" Right. And you say, "Well, because the audience that we're currently catering to is not necessarily interested in this stuff, and also the audience that's playing this stuff doesn't read our site." Right.
What's your addressable market? Like,
Exactly. It's like, who out there wants to read reviews of 99-cent blackjack games? It's like, do you want to, how much time are you going to spend doing a roundup of like, here's the best 5-card stud poker on your phone?
Is there a naked woman on the side or not?
Yeah, that's the game.
Off phone. I mean, think on the
maybe
iPhone.
Maybe a phone you have, except now everyone has the same two phones.
Yeah, now everyone has the same two phones, and that's less of a problem now. But it's definitely... because I had to get up to speed on a lot of the pre-iPhone mobile stuff as a result of that stuff. And it was a really interesting study in terms of just like, well, this is not something we should cover, but I'm glad that I at least went through this because, when the iPhone kind of broke and got really big, I was in more of a position to kind of see how that stuff was changing.
But in terms of that platform going from a Wild West there down to like, 2 or 3 dominant platform holders, which isn't that different than console games, where you have 2 or 3 dominant platform holders. From my perspective, I think that for traditional console game developers who are scared about this space and scared about making Titanic games versus a 99-cent, 1 second mechanic over and over again, it's like, isn't that what XBLA and PSN are for? Like, isn't that what Double Fine is doing right now? Which is that, the last game, I finished Bulletstorm before I came out here, but the last 2 games I finished were Stacking and, Costume Quest, because I played them in a weekend, in a day, and I felt like I had a really good time and a good experience with it. I didn't feel like, well, if I, end up having to get swamped with work and I can't dedicate 40 hours to this, I'm not really going to get my $60, so why would I pay for it? But it's like...
You're at least accomplishing something.
Right, exactly. I spent $15 for 5 hours, which isn't actually the same breakdown, but I was much happier with that.
Yeah. What was your first 30 hours of going through the intro of Stacking like?
It was a little confusing until I found that character who could identify everybody.
No, I was laughing because like I called Adam on the phone, or actually no, you called me on the phone. And I was like, he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm playing Stacking. And he's like, what's going on? I'm like, it's still the opening FMV.
Still trying to find why this guy's talking.
Yeah, it was like the opening movie.
Yeah, it was fucking dark.
It's very deliberately paced, to like achieve that silent film look. Like they had to kind of do that.
The way it works.
It definitely, like, I found myself going, like, can I just skip through this stuff? Like, I've become very impatient as a player.
He said it.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Pac-Man's the same way, though. Like the breakout competition that no one really expected was the Pac-Man Championship Edition.
Yes.
Yeah.
Became this, like, furious Xbox Live friends list fight between, like, everyone at Giant Bomb and the universe. Yeah. And I played the shit out of that game. And it was not just Pac-Man ported over to XBLA. It was, like, actually some cool design decisions that were made, but I spent money on that.
It's another one of the things that's really exciting to see, like, the rise of the download game and also the return of the small team game as a result.
Yeah. Well,
it's another one of those things that kind of ties back to the arcade days where you're like, these guys can have a vision and execute on it. And it's not always great, obviously. There's plenty of download games that just come out looking like junk.
The interesting thing about this week at GDC has been the theme that I've found talking to all the publishers is like a big sort of sad trombone. I mean, they're all like, stuff, guys. And then everyone else I'm finding, they're like, what do we do? Do we do social? Do we do mobile? How much of each do we do? Where are we moving? And all the people like my company and the independent developers like, I love this. This is the rock solid stuff because it is kind of Wild West. We're defining what the future is going to be, and publishers just aren't built to be able to handle the digital content, and so they're frustrated. Right?
But it's like independent movies and blockbuster movies, right? Like you go to Warner Brothers and they can't publish. I mean, they have like indie movie arms maybe, but you're not going to get a breakout Little Miss Sunshine.
I think it's a chicken and the egg thing too, because a lot of everyone's like, oh, the market's changed and consumers are getting different games or whatever. But I think a lot of that has to do with that. It's not so much. I mean, that's obviously part of it, but developers have changed. Like when I grew up, I would buy Counter 64 games, the Archon. I'd buy all the EA stuff with like the record album covers.
Yeah.
I would hang that shit on my wall. I had like the EA We See Farther poster on my wall with Bill Budge and Ann Westfall and all that. And like my goal is to work at EA. And like now, do you think like I don't know the Super Meat Boy guys at all, but do you think they want to fucking work at EA? No, there's no fucking way.
The
Right?
new groups, well, that's
like they
why
want to do
also
their own thing.
the small groups it's so identifiable when you say Notch in Minecraft.
Yeah.
It's like I want to be Notch. Like, do I want to be Cliffy B running this whole big huge team, or Randy Pitchford running this whole company? You know, it's like, or can I identify with a guy that has a
But
two-person...
Cliffy B says, I want to be Notch. Like, in the talk today,
Right,
like
exactly.
he was the one on the screen. He's like,
It'd
this
be
dude's
so
a fucking
easy
rock
to
star.
just
Which is kind of funny because his whole thing you ask him like, hey, would you ever think about doing a new Jazz Jackrabbit or something like that? Return to like a smaller downloadable
Are
game.
we talking about that?
No, we're not. We don't need to talk about that.
Billy Berghammer, you saw, he was there for the witness of the conversation. Hey, go ahead.
But this is before that stuff. And he would say, no, fuck no. Like we're making these big games. Like it was
Millions of
kind of
people
as
are playing
XBLA was
years.
coming up. He's like, these big blockbuster games. This is what I want to make. And to hear him kind of changing his tune a little bit, I think probably speaks to like how crazy huge.
Yeah. Well, someone said, would you
stuff like
go
Minecraft or something.
back and
Yeah.
be an indie and make a game with 10 people? And he was, or like, would you go down that path and have more control and be a power creative and really drive that vision? And he's like, fuck no, because I get to work with these people who balance me on a team or sort of yin to my yang and actually check my crazy vision. But it means we get to make these bigger experiences that millions of people enjoy, and that's important too. It's part of the industry. It's part of what moves games forward to make it. You know, the mindshare of Gears 3 being on fucking, was it on Conan or Fallon?
Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah, it was like Jimmy Fallon debuting trailers. It's cool that in the middle of a late night show they'll show a video game trailer for a minute. That's pretty rad.
Yeah, it's pretty
Anyway, Chicago's pretty cool too. People should go.
Yeah. Let's go. Let's go back.
Chicago
Chi-town.
Tourism Bureau. Is Chicago still awesome? I remember going to CES and we were at an EA Sports party when the Bulls won the championship.
Which of the three
Which
peats?
one? Yeah, which
I'm
of the
trying to
two?
think. I mean, it would have been
First three-peat or second three-peat?
It would have been early '90s. It would have been like sometime between like,
First
it was probably like
three-peat.
'92 or something
All right,
like that.
first three-peat.
And we were on
No Dennis
Rush
Rodman.
Street getting out of this party, and it was like
People are flipping cars over.
like me and
That's right.
Andy and Paul from Game Informer, and like Ryan McDonald, who was I
Where
think
was like Shoe? Where's all the EGM guys? Because they're all in Lombard.
I don't think any
They
of those
were-
guys like I don't think
They
Shu
were,
was,
right? I mean, you know what I'm talking about, right?
but
This
that's how I got my start. Was like
Yeah, EGM was in
worming
Lombard.
my way over to the Lombard EGM offices.
So this is I think this is like kind of pre-Shu. This is more like Steve Harris, Ed Semrad, sort of like this is Sushi X, Ken Williams. So
Sushi X.
Yeah, and I remember like going to CES and having a guy like point out this guy playing a Street Fighter machine, and someone going like, "That's Sushi X," and you look and it's like,
Never was.
You telling me this pudgy white dude is fucking it's sure enough?
Right.
Like it totally was. It was like EGM
All right.
Circ editor or something.
So let's do this. Let's go around the table, right? What was the one arcade game that was like the big one for you?
Smash TV. Like
So-
that's a little late, but
The
I mean,
all- like, the all
I came up
intimidating,
playing
like-
Galaga and Galaxian and all that stuff, but yeah, that one, and also watching my dad play Dragon's Lair. We would go to the arcade on weekends and stuff, and he would.
That was the first game I ever played.
And I could never. I was fucking terrible at it, but
Yeah.
he got to a point where he was beating Dragon's Lair, and we would play a lot of Gauntlet and Akari Warriors together.
Yeah,
also.
Akari
So,
Warriors.
yeah.
I had a younger brother, so the first game that I've always been more of a co-op guy. Like I'm much more a fan of say Left 4 Dead than
You
I am
look
Dead,
like more of a
Dead
co-op
Rising.
guy.
Yeah, co-op you. But we the first game that we both sort of recognized characters and played together was actually, this is gonna be a little weird, but the Simpsons game, the Simpsons arcade cabinet.
Oh my God,
where my
phenomenal.
brother would
Yeah,
just be
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I will be Bart Simpson right now. I'm 6 years old, and I will play the shit out of this, and we would just pop quarters in that all
And he said
day at
shit,
like
I'm sure.
Aladdin's
Yeah,
castle in the mall. in the
Aladdin's
suburbs.
Castle. I remember
That fucking place is weird.
Yeah, so Drake and I are from the same hometown,
Literally.
right? And it made me laugh so hard because I remember Aladdin's Castle had because Konami was in Buffalo Grove
Yep.
at
Oh,
the
right.
time, time.
Yeah.
And Konami had all
Buffalo
these
Grove.
different arcade cabinets on test, and Aladdin's Castle was one of them. So
Yeah. Anyway, that was what was it for you? That was a jam. No.
fuck. Well,
Something
Jam, of
before
course,
that.
but actually, the one that actually really hooked me big time was Killer Instinct.
What?
And I know a lot.
What?
What'd you say?
Jeff just goes, what?
It's terrible.
Killer Instinct? You didn't like Killer
didn't like
Instinct?
Killer Instinct.
You're fucking kidding me, huh?
I like fighting games where you actually had to play them, not where you just like dial a combo.
See, that to me says that
I'm not good at it.
It's not being
Yeah,
a warm
exactly.
and
You
fuzzy
sucked
thing
at
to
it.
you being hating.
Yeah, Killer Instinct for me, because I was a huge Rare fan, right? I mean, like Donkey Kong Country, everything I was doing, like.
Did you have Killer Cuts the CD?
Yeah, I did.
So did I.
And
They had women dancing on stage in the Nintendo booth.
there's actually a buddy that I went to grade school with, George Dupree, right? Who's like, I remember when you were in grade school, you had a Killer Instinct medallion. No, I totally did. Like, I totally like bit that bullet. I was in like Killer Instinct was it for me because it was like Midway and it was Rare and it was a Nintendo. So I was a huge fan of Killer Instinct.
For me, there was no actually arcade in my hometown. So Birch Bay, Washington State, we had to go, and we would go there twice a year. And I would save up all my money, and I would play Gauntlet and 720. Like literally $30 on each. I would just be like, Dad, drop me off.
720, the N64 game?
No, the skateboarding. Game.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Or Skater not. Skater
Also, that was 1080.
No,
I'm thinking 1080.
720 is the arcade game with the
Right.
thing. I called up my local arcade once and asked them how much it would cost to buy a 720 machine.
Oh, dude,
Did they give you an answer?
Yeah, he was like $5,000.
Right.
So I actually asked for it for my birthday one year.
I called up a pet store once and asked how much it would be to buy a chimpanzee. So I understand.
Yeah.
No,
$8
come on.
grand.
Like 720 chimpanzee. It's
Get
not the same
$8,000.
thing.
Get the
720 lasts forever. Chimpanzee's gonna die after
I
like
know. 14. And inflated feces in your mouth.
Pants. He shits in his pants.
In your mouth.
In your mouth, on your head. All right, sorry, Dave Lang.
Track and field. I remember the Aladdin's Castle at my house. They had the
battery.
Button, they had the button track and field, and so by us, it was everyone had the comb in their fingers.
Yeah.
and they would use that to like lever the buttons.
I used to see people bring spoons.
Or pencils were big
But-
too.
or
But then I remember
They were also junkies, so they had spoons on them anyway.
It was that was the year I fell in love with it, and we went on this family vacation. I don't remember where. We're driving, and we're at this like Four Seasons resort or something, and we get there. They have an arcade. Naturally, you go to the arcade, you check it out, and they had a fucking trackball track and field. Blew my fucking mind. Didn't know it existed. But it's like instead of like this, it's just spinning the thing as fast as you can.
What?
And then basically it's like I wasn't. Yeah. Then I just did that all.
That's a
all
finger
vacation.
pinching.
It was incredible. It was like sacrilege, but it was still so awesome because it was so crazy. Yeah.
And to this day, you're still really good at furiously passing your hand over
Yeah.
knobs of some kind, right?
No,
What I-
One
Thank
could say
God
I'm an
you said
expert,
it.
John.
Not an expert.
The one for me actually turned out to be NBA Jam because I have the fondest memories of my parents owned or rent this lake house in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, just north of the Illinois border, and there was this NBA machine at this bar, this like family bar that everyone would kind of go to, and we would spend the entire fall collecting change into these giant. Remember those giant crayons that you could put coins into?
Yeah.
So my parents got that for us, and they were like, "So we're tired of having to give you so much money to play NBA Jam. So just you guys spend the fall and the winter putting coins into this crayon, and then that's what you get to spend on NBA Jam." And we would cash it. We'd take this giant crayon, take it to the bank, get hundreds of quarters, and that's what we would spend. I mean, NBA Jam was a quarter per quarter, so that added up pretty quick. But because we had the giant crayon, that's what I would spend our entire summers doing.
Awesome. Well, I think that's going to do it for us.
I know it's
thanks,
like the
you guys.
most boring bombcast. I apologize, right?
It's like weird nostalgia.
Just cut it off after the threesome story. It's done.
I miss GDC.
If you just want to tell some horrible Midway story, now's the time.
What's a good horrible movie?
Oh, we shouldn't have opened this door, Jeff. It's time to
Cut the feed! Cut the feed!
Right, exactly.
We're
Thank you.
good. But that's been GDC from us here. Thanks for watching or listening if you're listening. If you're not listening, then you're not even hearing me.
No
Thank
one's
you for
still
watching. So I guess thank you for watching and or listening. The fuck am I even talking? All right, yes, that's GDC. We'll be back with regular podcasts on Tuesday. And then PAX East, don't forget, Friday night at PAX East, we've got our panel. Thursday night at PAX East, we'll be judging the Harmonix Rock Band night.
Rattle Theater in Harvard Square. Come early to see heavy metal screened on the big screen. It's
Really?
weird as shit,
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know if we're flying in that day, so we might
No,
not
no,
be
you're
there
not going to
in
be there,
time.
but
Yeah.
I'll be there.
All right, well, he'll be there.
Heavy metal.
Heavy metal.